call the meeting to order. Before we do the pledge, I just wanted to ask everybody to punch in, and as you can see, we've already had a technical difficulty. We had all the new supervisors' names in, saved the file, opened it up, and they weren't there. So anyway, we will have that corrected by Tuesday. So anyway, if you'd all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Invocation by Supervisor Locke.
We are meeting today to conduct matters of importance, guide our hearts and our minds in the spirit of fairness, right thought and speech, so that we may reach a successful conclusion. We would also like to welcome all returning supervisors and all newly elected supervisors. Welcome to the Winnebago County Board of Supervisors. Amen.
Thank you. Before we get started with the other things, I just wanted to draw attention to some of the things we put on your desk. We had to do a corrected resolution number 003. The vote for passage was wrong, so we had to change that. Also, there's another attachment or another sheet there that shows the dates for the budget sessions. That was not included in the rules, so we wanted to give you a sheet with those dates on it. All the other colored forms that we mailed you for your committee requests, your release of contact information, just hold on to those and we'll gather those up tonight. Your certificates of election are there for you to take, and then the oaths of office, once the judge or Judge Seifert swears you in, we'll have you sign those and then we'll collect those as well. I think, Executive Harris?
I'll be very brief, but I just want to welcome the 9 new supervisors to the Winnebago County Board, as well as the returning supervisors that have been reelected. And I am Mark Harris, the county executive. I'll be here for your meetings, but my offices are over on Otter Street in the building that used to be the Oshkosh Bagosh building. And that's where a lot of the administrative functions for the county are. Mostly courthouse functions in this building, although also things like the clerk of the courts and some of the other offices are here. But welcome, and I'm sure this will be a productive board and a good 2 years. Thank you. I almost forgot. Jim Schell, our airport director, who came to us from Cheyenne, Wyoming, is in the boardroom tonight. And Jim, if you'll stand up, I know some of the board members haven't met you. I know he would like to meet the new board members as well as the existing board members that he hasn't met before. So yeah, introduce yourself to him at the end of the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Judge Seifert?
Good evening. All those of you who will be sworn in this evening, if you'll please stand. And if you will, raise your right hand, please, and repeat after me. I state your name, having been elected to the office of Winnebago County Board Supervisor District, state the number. Swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin, and will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties of said office to the best of my ability, So help me God. Congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Judge. Okay, the next item on the agenda is for the election of the County Board Chairman. So we will take nominations for County Board Chairman. Supervisor Eisen? Yes.
It says here, public
Oh,
hearing.
I apologize, you're right. Thank you very much. Is there anyone here that would like to address the board on any item that's on the agenda? Anybody here? Okay, anybody else, or anybody here that wants to address the board? Okay, seeing no one, we will go on to the next item, which is the election of the County Board Chairman. So we need a motion to nomination. Supervisor Norton?
Thank you, Madam Clerk. At this time, I'd like to nominate the Supervisor from District 5, Shiloh Ramos.
Okay. Is there a second? Do we need a second on a nomination? Okay, is there a second? Okay. Okay. Supervisor Lautenschlager did it, so we got an extra blessing there. Okay. Oh, Supervisor Wingren?
Thank you. I'd like to have the honor this evening of nominating David Albrecht to be chairman. I have often said to this board, and I've told other people, I believe there are three kinds of people in the world: those who make things happen, those who watch things happen, and those that stand to the side and say, what happened? Dave Albrecht is in that first category. He's a leader. He's a get-things-done chairman, which is saying a lot with this board, with all due respect. It's like trying to herd cats sometimes, but he does a good job as our leader. It is said that there are three important things in real estate: location, location, location. Seems to me there are three main things to be board chairman: time, time, and time. Sit in on meetings. When a member is not able to attend a committee meeting, David Albrecht shows up. He draws up agendas. He does the payroll. He approves conventions. He organizes the Christmas party. He organizes the annual tour. He organizes the county budget sessions. In fact, he sits in on every department head when they meet with the county executive, and having attended many of those over the years, I know he asks tough questions, and he understands the budget because that's where the power is. He represents us at community events with a great deal of dignity and expertise. He brings a great deal of common sense and, of course, like I said before, the time. His biggest weakness is he is not Abraham Lincoln, but who of us is? He can't please all the people all the time. He is trusted, he's extremely kind, and he's optimistic. I've talked before about Aunt Tilly. She's a hard worker on a fixed income. David Albrecht is the kind of person that represents her cause in that he spends money like it's hers because it is. He knows that. He listens to all people regardless of their position. His position is full of duties, obligations, and responsibilities that over the years he has handled well. He has the time, talent, and experience to do a good job, and therefore I urge all of my fellow supervisors to support and re-elect Dave Albrecht, our Get Things Done chairman.
Thank you, Supervisor Wingren. Supervisor Ramos?
Thank you. I actually didn't buzz in. It somehow buzzed me in.
Yeah, okay. Supervisor Konecki?
That's a mistake also.
Okay. All right. Supervisor Lautenschlager? Nope, that mistake. Supervisor Smith?
I believe that Bill Wingren said it all, and I agree.
Okay, thank you. Supervisor Eisen?
Thank you, Madam County Clerk. I would like to direct my remarks to veteran county board members, but in particular to you newly elected members of the board. Hear me. What I have to say is important to you, because what happens tonight is the prelude of what will happen over the next 2 years. I support David Albrecht for chairman of the board of Winnebago County for the years 2018 to 20. David Albrecht has presided over 220 county board meetings that I have served at over the past 12 years. And I've always found him to be fair, sincere, ethical, and I have confidence in David Albrecht's leadership. David Albrecht has been responsible for preparation and order of the written agenda for over 220 county board meetings that I have attended, and not once has his work been questioned or challenged. The chairman is ex officio member of all committees with a vote when a member is absent, and he or she ought to be available to make a quorum on short notice. Because David Albrecht is a full-time, part-time employee of Winnebago County, he is available. The chairman is responsible for administration of the county board finances, approving per diem and travel, authorizing supervisor attendance at state and national meetings. And in my 12 years' experience, I have always found him to be fair in approving supervisor requests. As a full-time, part-time employee of Winnebago County, the chairman ought to be available to county department heads to resolve issues pertaining to their need for support of the county board, particularly in policy issues involving board approval of project financing. This is a key responsibility that takes full-time attention in a county with a $160 million budget. And David Albrecht has been in there for over a decade. As a full-time, part-time employee of Winnebago County, the chairman will succeed the county executive should he leave office. It is especially important that the chairman be available to fill in. Only David Albrecht is available without compromising a day job. To successfully lead the county board involves participation in state and national county organizations. David Albrecht is a director on the Wisconsin Counties Association Board of Directors for the past 8 years and is active in attending counties association business meetings. He is the only candidate who can freely invest his time in these affairs. For all these reasons, I am honored to support David Albrecht for chairman, and I hope that this will help guide your consideration to vote and support David Albrecht for chairman of the board for 2018 to 20. Thank you, Madam.
Thank you, Supervisor Eisen. Supervisor Binder?
I'd like to just say to the new county board members, I was elected 2 years ago, and whenever I'd ask Dave a question, he always basically had the answer for me, gave me the time of day. He didn't act like, you should know this. So I urge you to support for Dave. He'll be there for you, and if you have questions over your 2-year term, feel free to call him. He'll basically, there's a wealth of knowledge, and he's always willing to talk to you. Thanks.
Thank you. Did anybody else have any questions or comments? Okay, so we will pass out ballots for everyone. Oh, I'm sorry. We need a motion to close? Motion to close nominations? Okay, Supervisor Snyder, second? Supervisor Smith. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Okay, carried voice vote. Yep. After counting the votes, Supervisor Ramos got 20, Supervisor Albrecht 16. So Supervisor Ramos has been elected chairman. Congratulations. We just have to get it changed.
Appreciate your patience with the technology for me. But first, I want to take this opportunity to thank Supervisor Albrecht. Supervisor Albrecht, I believe you've been the county board chairman for 18 years. Am I correct on that? 12. Okay. For 12 years, so the entire time that I've been on the board. And what I can say definitively, I've watched you over all those years that I've been on this board. And I hope I've learned from you. And I would ask that over the next 2 years, that I'd seek your counsel, that you'd be receptive to that. Because with all that wealth of experience, we certainly want to put that to good use. To you all, I just want to say thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for providing me and for putting the confidence in me. I will do everything I can over these next 2 years to hopefully earn and continue to maintain that confidence. Now, there were some comments made in regards to the nomination, and frankly, to those of you, I appreciate those comments. And there's some validity in some of those comments. And what I would tell you is I will work as best as I can to address those concerns or deal with them in a different way. There's more than one way to get a job done. And my hope is that over these next 2 years, I will show you through my work that I will be able to do that as well. So thank you again. I certainly look forward to working with all of you in this new capacity. I truly appreciate it, and humbled and honored. So thank you all again. So the next item on the agenda would be the election of the county board vice chairman. So at this time, I would open up the floor for any nominations. Supervisor Warnicki.
It is my honor to nominate Tom Egan for Vice Chairman of the Winnebago County Board of Supervisors. Tom has served on the board since being elected in 2008. He serves on the Board of Health, the Facilities and Property Management Committee as Vice Chair, the Highway Committee, the Legislative Committee as Chair, Planning and Zoning Committee as Chair, Winnebago County Fair Association President. Tom knows county government and he is very conscientious of what is going on in county government. I ask for your vote to make Tom Egan your Vice Chair of the Winnebago County Board of Supervisors. Thank you.
Thank you. So that's a nomination for Tom Egan. Are there any other nominations for Vice Chairman? Supervisor Snyder.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Today it's my honor to nominate Jerry Finch as Vice Chair for this new term. I have known Jerry for 30-odd years as a co-worker at Neenah Paper and have followed with interest his second career as a supervisor and town chair for the town of Menasha, now the village of Fox Crossing, and as a supervisor on this county board. During his tenure at the town of Menasha, Jerry was a leader in developing 2 annual awards. He founded the Citizen of the Year Award and the Business of the Year Award in the town of Menasha, and later was privileged to actually win the award for Citizen of the Year. During his tenure here on the Winnebago County Board, he has held many positions on various committees and, importantly, was instrumental in the development of our current County Board Scholarship Program. Jerry is beginning tonight his 14th consecutive term. Think of that. Although he isn't the most senior member of our board, he is beginning his 27th year of service to this board and Winnebago County. He has, I believe, developed the traits necessary to be a leader, and he has, I believe, the experience gained from his many committee assignments to be a very effective vice chair for our board. Therefore, I heartily endorse his candidacy for vice chair of the Winnebago County Board, and I hope you will too. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Snyder. So that is a nomination for Supervisor Finch. Supervisor Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Basically, I was going to do the same thing, so.
Thank you.
Again, for Jerry Finch.
All right, very good. Thank you. Supervisor Eisen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I support Jerry Finch for Vice Chairman. Jerry has served 26 years on the Winnebago County Board, all during the time he worked full-time at Neenah Paper. Not only is he the third most senior supervisor on this board, he has been well involved in activities of the Wisconsin Counties Association and is capable of representing Winnebago County in the absence of the chairman. My support is for Supervisor Finch.
Thank you, Supervisor Eisen. Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? Then I'd entertain a motion. There's a motion to close and a second to close. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
There she goes. That's the easy way.
Okay, so Supervisor Egan had 21 votes, and Supervisor Finch had 15 votes. So congratulations, Supervisor Egan.
I'd just like to thank all of you that did vote for me, and those of you that didn't. I'm going to do my best to go ahead and show that I can do this job. Either way you would have voted, you would have had a person up here that I think could have handled the job. Jerry's a good guy. He's been around a long time. We were going to remain friends. We talked about this. He called me first and said, "Tom, I'm going to run for vice chairman." I said, "That's good, Jerry. I'm going to run too." So nothing else. We said we'd have a good time at it. So hopefully I can continue on. I'll help Shiloh in every way, and any one of you, my line's always open. Go ahead and don't be afraid to call me on anything. I'll try and help out any way possible. Thank you.
Supervisor Norton?
Mr. Chairman, is a motion to destroy the ballots in order at this time? Do we usually do that? If so, I'll make that motion.
Please, so move.
I make a motion to destroy the ballots for chairman and vice chairman.
Is there a second? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Supervisor Norton. Who seconded the motion? Supervisor Snyder. Thank you. Okay, moving on down to the next item, which is the appointment of the Committee on Committees. So for the Committee on Committees, I'm appointing Tom Egan, myself, Mary Beth Gabart, Mike Norton, and Jerry Finch. As was customary, at least with the last Committee on Committees, it was done on the Friday after the county board. Assuming it's okay with all the other Committee on Committee members, I'd ask if we could have it this Friday at 10 a.m., just as we had done 2 years ago. Okay? And that, if the room's available, would be at the first floor conference room at the Orrin building. Orrin King building, just like last time. Okay? All right. Moving on down to the next orientation session. So tonight we have an orientation session, which is general information for all county board members, and then we'll get into a series of resolutions after that. The first one is the explanation of the county board room voting system. So that's my opportunity here. And we actually have a fairly large number of new county board members with us. So there are 9, so 25% of us are new tonight. And what I'd ask for those of you who are not new, and if you have someone who is new next to you, please help them along and show them. We all know how valuable it is to have folks who have been there before. But all of you should have a voting pad in front of you, and it's fairly self-explanatory, but when we enter the meeting, and you all actually did it tonight, first of all, you have to actually enter yourself into the roll. So Sue, would we be able to set up the board for that?
We can't do it now that we're into the meeting.
All right. Well, just to recap so everyone understands, first, to enter into the roll, you would press I and then confirm at the beginning of the meeting, and that essentially registers that you are present at the meeting. Then, for any resolution, you'll see on your pad, aye, essentially for yes, nay for no. The important factor, though, is when you hit aye afterward, you need to hit confirm. If you hit nay, you need to hit confirm afterward as well. And then there's the third option for abstaining. But the most important part is to hit confirm. And what I would ask, and I am certainly negligent in this regard at times too, is when you hit the aye or you hit the nay, and then you hit the confirm, make sure you look up on the board to indeed show that it is registered that you have entered your vote, because oftentimes the first time you hit the confirm, it doesn't automatically register. And you don't want to be the last person on the board being called upon to enter your vote, and I've been there before. So, and then the only other button on there remaining is, of course, the request to speak. And then you'll see your name up on the board in the order in which you buzzed in to speak. Any questions in regards to the voting system? Okay. All right, very good. So moving on down to item number 2, the explanation of the functions of the Corporation Counsel's Office and the Ethics Handbook. For that, we have our Corporation Counsel, John Bodner. John?
Good evening. My name is John Bodner. I'm the Corporation Counsel for Winnebago County. My, you can't hear?
You need to hit the microphone for John, the podium one.
All right. Again, my name is John Bodner. I'm the Corporation Counsel for Winnebago County. My office represents the county or administers the representation of the county in all civil legal matters. We don't represent the county in any criminal matters. That's something the district attorney's office does. But anything that's non-criminal, we represent Winnebago County in relationship to, or we administer it. So there are times when the county is involved in lawsuits, say there was an accident or something like that, that our insurer will appoint counsel to represent the county or represent the county board. And in those instances, I'm still administering it. I'm looking out after the county to make sure that that's being done properly. My office is located on the first floor of the Orrin King building, which is right across the courthouse, or the parking lot from the courthouse. My assistant is Mary Ann Miller, who's seated here to my left. We basically do everything from representing the county in contractual matters, matters involving labor disputes, things of that sort, to representing the county in civil commitments, child in need of protection or services actions, which involve neglected or abused children, termination of parental rights matters. We basically handled a wide variety of topics for the county that we represent the county in addition to providing the county board with advice and advising department heads on various matters. On your desk today, there's an ethics handbook that I put together a number of years ago for you. That's yours to keep and take home and cherish and read at your leisure. But I do want to go over some of the things in it with you. Our office is here. Another purpose of our office is to kind of help you to make sure you don't get yourself in any trouble. And there's certainly a number of pit holes or potholes along the way that you could fall into and may do so unknowingly. Just you're trying to be a good supervisor, but you still could get yourself in trouble. So the handbook was put out with that in mind with regard to ethical issues. If you look at the first page, it talks about some of the criminal laws that may apply to you, and hopefully none of you get into any type of criminal problems, but we list some of the statutes that relate to public officials that are criminal offenses. Of course, the biggest one would be bribery, and I don't think I need to explain that to you. But, and there's also one called special privileges from utilities, which is really unlikely to happen, such as you using the influence of your office to get something like free phone service or electrical service. But one that does apply that people do get themselves into is misconduct in public office. And there's a number of subsections with regard to this, and I'm looking at the bottom of page 2 and the beginning of page 3. What is intentionally failing or refusing to perform a non-mandatory or a mandatory non-discretionary ministerial duty of your office? And what does that mean? It means that if a statute says you have to do something and you go against that, that's misconduct in public office. The second one is that you do an act using your official title that you don't have the authority to perform under the law. And the example that I use on the next page, on page 3, is say you're chairman of a committee and you go in and you decide you're going to buy a new pickup truck for the county from a dealer. even though you have no authority to do that. That would be a felony if you did something like that. And that's just an example, a very simple example. If you exercise a power that you have in a manner which is inconsistent with your office, that's also a felony. So the example I give is, let's say you're an attorney and you're on the county board, and you represent a client who has a claim against the county, and even though you're representing that client and you're on the county board, you vote to grant the client's claim before the county board, and you're going to get a 25% contingency fee from the client for representing him successfully on the case. That would be conducting yourself in a manner which would be inconsistent with your office. Fourth is that you make a report or issue a certificate which in a material effect you intentionally falsify. So the example I gave is like if you claimed 350 miles for reimbursement for going to Madison on a trip, and that's only about 180 miles down there round trip, you're falsifying a record. That's a violation of state law. It's a violation of state criminal law. And the fifth example I give as to misconduct in public office, or the fifth category, is under color of your office, you intentionally solicit or accept for the performance of any service or duty anything of value which the employee or officer knows is greater or less than is fixed by law. So the example I give is if you're chairman of the zoning committee and you tell somebody there's a $500 late fee for letting the zoning committee hear a case even though there's no such fee, that would be an example of something like that. This is an important one on page 4, private interest in a public contract. If you do any type of business with the county presently, you cannot do any business with the county where you receive in the aggregate more than $15,000 per year. So let's say that you own a company that puts carpeting down, and the county bids a contract out for carpeting, and you put a bid in for that, and the bid is for $30,000, and you get that contract, and you accept that contract. That's illegal. You can't be on the county board and do business with the county in the aggregate of more than $15,000 a year. And similarly, if there were 3 or 4 separate contracts you bid on, and they were all small contracts, like $3,000 each, but you had 5 contracts of $3,000 and they total more than $15,000 a year, you can't do that. That's a violation of state criminal law. So if you have a business, you need to be careful with regard to that. That's the one that it seems that a lot of offices, people who own businesses may have a tendency to violate unknowingly, so you need to be careful. Going on to page 5, the Code of Ethics for Local Government Officials, the state code says, no local public official may use his or her public position or office to obtain financial gain or anything of substantial value for the private benefit of himself or herself or her immediate family. As a county board member, you are a local elected official, so this law applies to you. It also applies to your immediate family, so it applies to you, it applies to your spouse, and it applies to anybody that you support. So if you're supporting your children, let's say if you have grown children but they're still in college and you're supporting them, this law would apply to them, and it also would apply to anybody who supports you. So if you were a minor and you were being supported by your parents could not accept anything of substantial value. Now the State Ethics Board back in 1977 issued an opinion saying that anything of substantial value certainly was anything of more than $25. So it also said in that opinion that mere trinkets, like you go to you go to a trade show and somebody gives you a pen or a pencil or a baseball cap or something like that. That's not of substantial value. You don't have to worry about that. But if it's more than $25 in value, then it certainly is something that you can't accept if you're receiving that for your own personal benefit. So I have some examples on page 9. One is, and I've gotten this question a number of times, county board supervisor is also on a town board. He's a town board supervisor. He uses his position as county board supervisor to obtain a grant for the town from the county in the amount of $100,000. That is not a violation of state law because he's not using his position for his private benefit. He's using it for the benefit of the town that he also represents. Another example is, and we see that you will see this a lot, you go to a Wisconsin Counties Association convention, and while at the convention, you let's say there are boxes there, and you put your name in it. It's like win free Packer tickets, and you put your name in, and maybe you win 2 free Packer tickets. Value is maybe $300 or $200. Is that a violation of state law if you accept it? And the answer is yes, because the only way you could have gained admittance to that convention is as a result of the office that you hold. Now, on the other hand, say you're at the convention and you go into McDonald's, and maybe the county's paying for you to eat at McDonald's, but you go in there, they have the same box. It's like win 2 Badger football tickets or win 2 Packer football tickets. If you put your name in that box, can you accept those? Yes, because that's open to everybody in the general public. So it's only things that are basically directed at you specifically as a public official that you can't keep if they're provided to you. Be careful with regard to accepting things like I said, like baseball tickets, football tickets, or something of that ilk from somebody who offers them to you. Because you could be accused of violating state law if you do that. It's always best to, if somebody would offer you tickets like to a Packers game, pay the person if that's somebody you would do business with. Now, if it was your cousin from Texas and they're never going to do business in Winnebago County, I don't think you have much to worry about. They don't have any property here or anything else, but you need to be careful about that.
Supervisor Gordon, you have a question?
Where you're at the Wisconsin Counties Association and you win tickets, if you gave those away.
Well, we've had that happen. We had Nancy Barker. She won a TV set. She won a color TV set a long time ago when color TV sets were worth something. And she realized she couldn't keep it, and she donated it to UW Fox Valley. So if you donate it, if you accept it, but it's for the benefit of the county, as opposed to your own personal benefit, that it doesn't end up in your living room or bedroom, you're fine with it?
So you would have to donate it?
You would have to give it to the county. Also, there's an issue, and this is on page 7, with regard to being associated. What is an organization, or what is an organization which you're associated with? So, if you're doing, if you're voting on something, let's say that you work for Kimberly-Clark, and I'm just going to use them as an example, and you're on the county board, and you vote on a zoning change with regard to Kimberly-Clark. Are you associated with that organization? And what the state statute says is that you're deemed to be associated with the organization if your immediate family is a director, officer, or trustee, either you or your family, your immediate family. And again, I said your immediate family is your spouse any children that you support or anybody that supports you. So if you're either a director, officer, or trustee of that organization, and you directly, or if you directly or indirectly, or in the aggregate with your family, own at least 10% of the outstanding equity of that organization. So, with Kimberly-Clark, I mean, people come up and say, well, Kimberly-Clark has, and again, I'm just using them as an example, could be any corporation, could be Oshkosh Truck or somebody. They have a zoning matter on the agenda, and my wife works for them. Can I vote on that? Well, is your wife on the board of directors for Kimberly-Clark or Oshkosh Truck? No. Do you and your wife own 10% of the stock in that company? Well, do you think I'd be here if I did? So, the chances of that applying to some big company like that are pretty small. On the other hand, we do have issues that come up with charitable organizations. Could be something like Oshkosh Youth Soccer or Fox Valley Youth Soccer or a hospital or something like that, and you're on the board of that organization, you can't vote on that. That would be a conflict of interest. Or if you're an officer of that organization, that would be a conflict of interest. You have to recuse yourself from doing that. Now, I always tell people when they ask me a question such as this matter's coming up, I'm going to use zoning matters because that seems to be an area of constant conflict. This matter's coming up for an amendment on my brother's land. He applied for a zoning change on it. Can I vote on that? And I always say to the person, well, do you support your brother? No. Does he support you? No. Yeah, you can vote on it, but then there's the political issue of the smell test. Do you want to vote on it because the public's going to perceive it as being a conflict of interest, even though legally it may not? So that's something you have to answer, whether you want to vote on something like that. Legally, it's not a conflict of interest, but it may be something from a political standpoint which may not make a whole lot of sense to stick your nose in and do. The county also has a personnel policy, has a conflict of interest section which prohibits county employees from using their office or position for personal financial gain or financial gain of their family. Now, you're not employees per se of Winnebago County, you're elected officials, but this does apply to people like myself and other people who work for Winnebago County. It also precludes Winnebago County employees from engaging in political activity during normal work hours using county equipment, property, or office space for that purpose. And it can be a real problem for any employee who violates that rule. Could lead to their termination. So please, if you're running for office, do not come up to somebody who's a county employee and say, can you pass my petition around the courthouse for signatures, or can you type this on county equipment during your lunch hour? That's going to be a problem. It's going to get the employee in trouble. It's going to get you in trouble. So please don't do that. We also have discrimination and harassment prohibitions in the county personnel policy. You're also prohibited from discriminating against people on the basis of federal and state law. You can get yourself and the county in trouble if you act in a discriminatory manner, so please don't do so. My office is there to provide protection for you folks with regard to issues that may come up. And one of the things in the state statute is that Section 59.595B provides legal protection for county officials with regard to ethics questions. So if you ask my office for an opinion on somebody, you ask on something, you ask me or my assistant for a legal opinion on an ethics question, and we provide that, you provide that to us in writing, and we provide an answer to you in writing, that protects you from from any prosecution with regard to that. It doesn't necessarily mean that the opinion we gave you was right, but as long as you acted in good faith, it does protect you. So that's basically it. I guess one other thing I would caution you about is this isn't an ethical issue, but please be aware that there is a thing called the public meetings law, which can be a stickler and get people in trouble. There were problems with a couple county board representatives last time. If you violate that, you can be fined up to $500 and the county cannot pay the fine. You need to give notice of any public meetings within 24 hours prior to the meeting, so it's got to be posted in at least 3 public places. You should give it to the clerk and have them, the clerk will post it on the internet also and provide it to the newspapers. If you are a member of a committee and you have enough people from, if you're a member of 2 committees and Committee A is meeting, but you have enough members from Committee B, which you're a member of, to form a quorum for that second committee, even if the meeting is with regard to the subject area of Committee A, you need to give notice of that meeting with regard to Committee B, because technically you are forming a quorum, if you have enough people, of the meeting for Committee B. So if you have 3 people on Committee A and you're having a meeting for Committee A, but those same 3 people are on Committee B, you have to give a notice on both of those that you're meeting. So be careful with regard to that. If you have questions, again, please ask me. That's what we're there for. Are there any other questions that people may have? All right. Well, thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, John. Okay, the next agenda item is the Personnel and Payroll Information System, and for that we have our Human Resources Director, Mike Collar. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And welcome returning and new board members, and especially for the new board members, mainly the topic I'm going to address is a few things about the county employment situation and workforce. I have to take a minor issue with Mr. Bodner in that we do consider county board members county employees, not the same as most employees and not subject to most of the same rules, but employees in a legal sense of you provide services and you do get some money from the county for it. So you are each one of approximately 1,172 employees in the county, which does make us one of the largest employers, not the largest, but certainly in the top 10 employers within Winnebago County geographically. So it's a major employer within our area. We have over 1,100 employees from time to time. We hire about 5 a week, so I can't tell you the exact number at any given time unless I look very carefully, because it averages about 5 a week coming and going. So that keeps my staff very busy. The employees are of different kinds, different categories. We have about 950 full-time employees, regular employees. There's about 135 part-time regular employees. And then we have maybe 100 or so of different categories: project employees, temporary employees, casual employees, seasonal employees, and so forth. So you're technically considered a casual employee, at least as we have our payroll system set up. Casual meaning you're not working regular hours, you work when needed. So I'm going to give you just a couple of facts and mention a couple of concepts that you will be running into later this term, particularly for the new members. One question people frequently ask, learning about public employment, is are there unions? They've heard a lot about public sector unions. Of course, we've had a lot of developments over the past 10 years in that area. Currently, Winnebago County has only one collective bargaining unit, only one union that's active. And that's in the sheriff's office. We have about 95 deputies who still maintain most collective bargaining rights, and we still bargain and have a collective bargaining agreement with that group of employees that deals with their pay rates and also many of other terms and conditions of employment. That contract will be expiring the end of 2018, So it's my job to try to negotiate a new contract, a new agreement with that group, but it's subject to ratification by the board. So when we reach that agreement, you will be hearing much more about that. The rest of our employees are not unionized. They are what you call at-will employees, but we do have many policies that have been adopted to guide how we deal with those employees. And employment is a big area where you have kind of a mixture of policies which are adopted by the board, and then you have administrative actions. You have the managers, administrators, myself, the county executive, who deal with particular decisions, how to deal with particular employees. But we do have, as Mr. Bodner mentioned, a whole booklet full of human resources policies. These have all been adopted by the board. This particular book was adopted by the board about 4 years ago, in fact, with a few changes since then. But we're probably due for another significant update and some more changes. So you'll probably be hearing during the next year or so more about some of those policies that we'll present. A number of other things you will be hearing about. Health insurance, for instance, will be something I'm invariably asked about at budget time and other times during the course of the year. Someone mentioned the county has about a $160 million budget per year. Right now, $16.6 million of that is just for employee health insurance. And over half of that budget is employee wages and benefits of various sorts. So that's a very high priority in my work, and a lot of things that you may have questions about and we'll be dealing with from time to time as changes take place. We have, for new members, what's called a table of organization, which is essentially a list of all the regular positions in the county, excluding all those casual, temporary, seasonal people. All the regular full-time and part-time positions are in a list that has to be authorized by you, the board, before we can hire people to fill them, to keep some control. A lot of that is done through the budget process. So we have a list of positions that are for the board. Outside of the budget process, whenever there is a need from a particular department to make a change. Sometimes that happens because an employee has retired or resigned and we want to make the change while the position is vacant. So you will be, from time to time, asked to look at the table of organization and tell us whether we can authorize additional staff or a changed job title or two. And then county pay. Is a big subject. As I said, it's a huge part of the county budget. Not going to take the time to go over all the details of our pay plan and compensation system because that would take me as much time as you cared to listen and then some. But we do have now a compensation plan that governs most employees, most regular employees outside of the union in the sheriff's office. So the vast majority of regular employees are covered by one compensation plan and one schedule. We have grades 10 through 31, and that schedule was developed in 2016, just less than 2 years ago, when we had a compensation study done with a consultant and looked at all the county positions and spent quite a bit of time developing that schedule and where positions should be. The ranges in each grade have minimums and control points and maximums, and although it's up to administration sometimes how to set the pay for a new employee coming in and some other things, it's up to the board to set the range that we can work with. So if we want to change the minimums or the maximums or the control points, we will come and make a proposal to the board, which we often do now toward the end of the year. For the upcoming year, 2019, we may very well propose, a small increase or a change to some of those pay ranges. Again, that's a subject that's within the purview of the board as a policy we would work with. So those are just some very general concepts, and there are a million things that come under each of those. So if any of them come up during your term on the board, please don't hesitate to give me a call, talk to anyone in the HR department. If you have questions about benefits, you know, Jane is a treat to work with and very good at providing information. I see heads nodding when I mention her. I just have to brag a little bit because I know she's got a good rep. And one of the things we do for new employees coming in is typically we'll have one of our HR staff people sit down with them and go through a lot of the paperwork. So unfortunately, you have to do some of the paperwork too, and you got most of that in the packet that I believe the clerk's office sent you, various forms. So with 9 new members, I don't really have time to meet each of you tonight and sit down and answer all the questions you may have about the forms. So please try to find some time soon, as soon as possible, to come into the HR office and meet with either Joan Lowe or Jane Letke. They're the people who primarily do this, and they would be very glad to sit down with you, go through the forms in detail, answer any questions you might have about them. But there are really just 3 or 4 things that we need to do to put you into our payroll system. And we do need to get those forms properly filled out, and if we don't, we can't pay you any money. So I've been working in county government, well, here for about 5 years, and it's my 4th county that I've worked at, so it's about 20 years overall. I haven't met too many county board members who are in it for the money. But you ought to get what you have coming, so please fill out the paperwork. We don't want to hold that up. It creates difficulties for us. So we have the I-9 form, of course. The immigration form, you have to provide us either with a copy of your birth certificate, or I'm sorry, either a copy of your passport, if you have one, or bring in both your driver's license and your Social Security card. If you can't find your Social Security card, bring in a certified copy of your birth certificate. That will work in its place, along with the driver's license. There are some other options for documentation if you don't have any of those. If you have questions, let us know. But we need to get those to get you in the system. We need to have the W-4 form filled out for your withholdings. There isn't very much withheld from that pay. We need to have an electronic deposit form. All our pay is done through direct deposit. So we need to fill that out, and we need to know where your bank account is and the routing information and all that. You can bring in a voided check if you wish, and we get the numbers from that, or you can just fill it out on the form and bring that into us. And another form we have for every employee that uses any of our electronic information, and our IS director is, I think, next on the agenda, is our computer use policy. We keep that in personnel files. Again, you have to sign one of these indicating that you understand the rules about computer use, that our computer systems, and for you, it's going to be primarily the county email server, which will be very important if you want to use that for communications with anything relating to county business. And communications with constituents about county business, with employees, with other board members, etc. It's strongly advised that you use your county email address for that. In order to get that, again, you have to sign the form showing that you understand some of the restrictions in place, which are mainly that it's only to be used for county business, and there's confidentiality policy. As supervisors, you will come in contact with information and data, sometimes which is not available to the general public, and you need to treat that as confidential, but also that you understand the application of the open records law, and that emails, for instance, even text messages can be considered records under the open records law and may be subject to disclosure. So you have to think about that sometimes before you send off a sharply worded message that you might regret later, perhaps. That things you send will be kept on the county email server and subject to disclosure if we get the appropriate form of request. It's our obligation to do that, to maintain open government. So if you have particular questions about the forms, as I said, you can try to corner me afterward, and that would be fine. I'd be glad to do that, but I certainly encourage you as soon as possible to come in and meet with either Jane or Joan to really get set up on our payroll system, and they can answer probably more of your questions about those details than I can. But I think I speak on behalf of probably all department heads when I say if you ever have any questions or concerns that relate to our departments, in mine, any county employment matters, we'd rather get a call from you or a meeting from you and talk about it sooner rather than later before the concern spreads. So be glad to do that at any time. So otherwise, thank you very much. And
We have a couple of questions, so we'll open up the floor. Supervisor Eisen?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Colliard, could you explain to the county board, in particular to our new members, what the board per diem is?
oh, now you're going to catch me because I don't deal with that per diem, and I'll probably get it wrong.
Well,
I
if
think
you
I
can-
have it in my packet here. I think it's $66 a full day, 44 for half. Oh, it went up. That's
It has
right.
gone up with this term.
It did go up.
So I believe it's $75 for a full day and $50 for a half day.
That would start today.
I would.
You were sworn at the start of the
Yes.
meeting, so the time after that is, I believe, under the new rule.
So if you heard the answer, it starts as of today. Any
And
other
can-
questions, Supervisor Eisen?
And could you also explain what the automobile expense is per mile?
We use the IRS rate, so that changes from time to time, pretty much yearly. Again, I don't want to try to give you the number off the top of my head because I don't try to keep track of it very closely, but it's a little over 50 cents a mile, right? We have a dispute behind me about whether it's 54 and a half or 52 and a half cents. So
54
this is
and a
why I
half.
don't try to get pinned down on these numbers because I don't remember them otherwise.
54 and a half cents, Mr. Collier.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor Eisen. I will accept that, and we do follow the IRS rate, whatever it is.
So if you all heard that, it's 54 and a half cents for the mileage rate. Thank you, Supervisor Eisen. Supervisor Finch?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to state how lucky we are to have Mike, of course, and his employees. I've had some discussions with, the lady's name is Jane Hughes, and I mean, she went above beyond the call of duty to help me out on different items and different things. So we're very blessed to have Mike and his staff to working for us. And I just want to make sure you know that your staff is top of the line.
We are lucky to have an excellent
Yes,
staff.
we are.
Yes, and if I may, Mr. Chairman, I forgot one point I was going to mention to the new members in particular regarding employee benefits. It's a big item. We do not offer health insurance to county board members, but we do offer dental insurance to county board members. If you are interested in that, we have had a few people take it. If you wish to take the dental insurance, either single or family coverage, you need to pay the full premium. The county doesn't pay anything toward it. We're a self-funded plan, meaning we act as our own insurance company. And I don't want to go through the details because most of you won't be interested, but if you are interested in dental insurance through the county, again, please come talk to someone in the HR office and be very glad to walk you through the benefits and what the cost would be.
Any other questions? Thank you very much, Mike.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, so we are on the final item under the orientation session, and that is the iPads and supervisors' email account information with our Information Systems Director, Patty Francoeur. Thank you, Patty.
Congratulations to the new as well as the returning supervisors. My name is Patty Francoeur, and I'm the Director of Information Systems. Our department is a service department responsible for maintaining the entire county data network as well as the telephone system. So tonight, I just want to give you a brief, high-level bits of information regarding the iPads, which are the devices your county board budget covers. So the intention of having you each have an iPad available is to help the county reduce paper and postage costs. This room has Wi-Fi access as well as all of the meeting areas where the committees meet. Each device will also have an application on there that allows you to annotate your documents, so you can highlight, you can type in questions, notes. Obviously, it takes a little bit of practice. I brought one prop just to give you something to think about related to the cost. This is the printed hard copy of the county executive budget, and once this is done, there will be another one just like this that is the adopted budget. These cost approximately $30 each to print, so you can access this on your device electronically and save that amount of money. So just one example. You also have all of the packets that are mailed, paper and postage, and multiple committees have packets they mail out. So one thing to think about as you start to practice using your devices. Related to that, I think you have some paperwork that we need back, and we'll get some of your information probably from the HR stuff as well to create accounts. Once we have that back, we should be able to have the new supervisors' devices ready for the May special orders meeting. We do not plan to have a large classroom type training like we did when everyone got them at the same time. So we're recommending you call the IS department and set up training if you need it. When we distribute them, you will get a packet of information, guidelines, cheat sheets that walk you through everything. But if you need assistance, our department is there. There's a help desk line that is manned Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Easy number to remember, 303-HELP. So you can call us anytime. You can stop in to our department. We are in the county administration building, and someone will gladly help you. For training, we'll sit down if you need a half hour or an hour. So again, call, make an appointment, or stop in for that aspect. For future consideration, just FYI, these iPads could be used to vote with the voting system that we have. But again, that is a future consideration. It would eliminate the clickers that you have and the task or chore of clerk having to pass them out, collect them, and keep them up to date with batteries. So that's a possibility. Mike had mentioned email. Again, we do strongly encourage you utilizing a county email account for public record reasons. Every email that you send out or that you receive in is retained on our system for 7 years. So that eliminates for you the chore of trying to save and decide what is business related email on your own, which if you do use a non-county email, that would be your responsibility. So again, something to think about. The format of our accounts for you guys would be first name dot last name at co.winnebago.wi.us. So that's the standard format. The email, the county email, also allows you to access it, not only access and manage it on your iPad, but you can do it on any computer anywhere that has access to the internet. So you can go to our webpage and get to your county email. As you have these devices, there are a couple maintenance tasks we ask you to do. You will get alerted for operating system updates, and those are very important for security reasons, so we ask that you do those when you get the alert. And then we also have something called Mobile Device Management, MDM, which we have asked that you guys install. That does a couple things. It protects the device if it is lost or stolen, and we have had an example of that, and we were able to wipe any protected data on there, and the example that we did have was a health-related device, so it was very important that we were able to do that. Also, if you forget your PIN, which happens, MDM allows us to help you remotely, and it allows us to reset the PIN. If we cannot do that, we sometimes have to reset the entire device, which is a minimum of probably an hour of one of my staff's time to reset and reinstall everything from scratch on your iPad. So MDM is important. There are 10 of you out there that would have special handouts that were on your desk with your name on. Those were from me. If you are one of the ones that have not updated your operating system, those are instructions. And also, if you need to put MDM on, those are the instructions on how to do that. Again, feel free to call us if you need any assistance. I guess the last thing while I have your attention is I was going to plug my committee since you'll be doing committee choices. Hopefully my previous members will return, but I do have an opening and our meetings are great and sometimes make you want to cheer, dilly dilly. So consider choosing the IS committee. And if you have any questions for me, I guess I can do that at this time. I think I covered everything else.
Any questions? Okay, thank you very much, Patty.
Thank you.
And just one point, Patty was referring to a sheet. There's a blue sheet you would have received in regards to contact information and some preferences in terms of publishing of certain information. So if you could please complete that and return it to the county clerk, that would be greatly appreciated. Okay, so that completes all the 4 items of the orientation session. So next on our agenda are the resolutions. However, we do have some coffee and cake tonight. So it is our first session for the next 2-year county board. So in celebration of that session, we do have some coffee and cake. So I'd ask that we recess for just 10 minutes. You all can take an opportunity for some coffee and cake, and then we'll be back here in 10 minutes. We are in recess. Thank you.
The Winnebago County Board is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Please stay with us. Coverage will resume shortly. The Winnebago County Board is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Please stay with us. Coverage will resume shortly. The Winnebago County Board is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Please stay with us. Coverage will resume shortly. The Winnebago County Board is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Please stay with us. Coverage will resume shortly. The Winnebago County Board is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Please stay with us. Coverage will resume shortly. The Winnebago County Board is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Please stay with us. Coverage will resume shortly. The Winnebago County Board is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Please stay with us. Coverage will resume shortly. The Winnebago County Board is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Please stay with us. Coverage will resume shortly. The Winnebago County Board is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Please stay with us. Coverage will resume shortly. The Winnebago County Board is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Please stay with us. Coverage will resume shortly. is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Please stay with us. Coverage will resume shortly. The Winnebago County Board is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Please stay with us. Coverage will resume shortly.
Started again. So we're now on the resolutions, but just before we go to that, just a quick reminder, you should have a pink sheet in regards to your preference for committee selection. If you haven't turned that into the county clerk yet, please do that before the end of the session today. All right, so moving on down to the resolution. So the first resolution is in regards to the adoption of the rules. Now, we will hold off on that one till the end of our session because all of the subsequent ones will be amendments to our rules, and then we will make it a motion to adopt our rules as amended tonight. So moving on to resolution number 002042018, amend section 7.7 of the rules of the Winnebago County Board of Supervisors, resolutions regarding proposed state or federal legislation. Supervisor Wojciechowski.
Sorry, I'll say it again. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move for the approval of resolution number 2, please.
So there's a motion and a second. Discussion. Supervisor Norton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm bringing it forth, and Aaron's bringing it forth, I believe. You know, I guess I understand, I get the message that after the rule change we had 2 years, we want more than just a simple majority. I get that. But to have the supermajority, to have them, the members, and not just those present, is a little bit too stretched. I mean, if you're going to do that, I ask, why do we have a legislative meeting? So I think it's a reasonable request to change the rule from a 3/4 to 2/3, and of those present and not the members, because I think this current rule is almost as stringent as any monetary things we do. So I think the change should be applied, and I think it's reasonable, and that's why I support them.
Thank you, Supervisor Norton. Supervisor Eisen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would wish to amend this amendment because, in my opinion, the standard, whether it be 3/4 or 2/3, is too strict for and unnecessary to express the opinion of the county board, the sense of the board. Remember, these are the county board's opinions or their thoughts in respect to these particular legislation so that we could get the county's association to support whatever that opinion or whatever that point is. And so in order to do that, I would recommend, I would submit an amendment to line 11 to strike out, require a 2/3 vote of those members present for passage, and substitute a simple majority of those members present for passage. So that you don't have 2/3, you don't have 3/4. I argued this the last time it came around 2 years ago, and I say it again. It's just a simple majority.
Okay, so there was a motion and a second for the amendment. And so the amendment, just to clarify for folks, is line number 11, to strike require a 2/3 vote of those members present for passage, and substitute to say require a simple majority of those members present for passage. So there's a motion and a second. Supervisor Fari on the amendment.
No, I have a question on procedure, sir.
Okay. Please go ahead then.
Perhaps my memory is flawed, but aren't these resolutions supposed to go through the Judiciary Committee and then to the board? Isn't that the rule that we have?
So, and please, Corporation Counsel, correct me wrong if on our rules, they have to go through the judiciary if it's within the 2 years between organizational meetings, but can be voted on here directly at the organizational meeting. And please, correct me if I'm wrong, Corporation Counsel.
Actually, I think that I think any board member can bring a resolution. You don't have to go through the committee. And specifically at this meeting, for sure,
Okay.
any member can bring a motion. Any member can bring a resolution or motion for any meeting. But specifically on the rules, certainly at this meeting, any member can bring a motion to amend the rules.
Okay, thank you. That was my question.
And the difference, as I understand it, is that at the organizational meeting here today, it's a simple majority to pass one of these rules changes, whereas I believe throughout the year, it's I think a 2/3 required for the change in the rules in between. Thank you. Supervisor Keller.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am opposed to this amendment. I would like to see the rule stay at 3/4. If it goes to 2/3, that's way better than a simple majority. I think if we send a message to our legislators and to other counties that we are in favor or opposed to something, I think it needs to be a strong message, and that it needs to be agreed to by at least 2/3, if not 3/4 of our members. I've been on voting on resolutions that I disagreed with the outcome, and they were by one vote. And I'm really pained to hear legislators or believe that a legislator is acting on something that just barely half of us agreed with. I want to keep this at least 2/3, if not 3/4. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Keller. Supervisor Rasmussen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, we spend a lot of time on these things, and one of our previous colleagues, who's not on the board now, used to say, we're here to conduct the county's business, not the state's business. And during my time on the legislative committee a few months back, I asked our state representatives, what do you do with these things when you get these from the counties? Do you act on them? Do you look at them? And they pretty much gave me the deer in the headlights look. So I really think we spend way too much time on these things. You get these things from other counties, then it goes to the committee. They got to deal with it. It comes here, and it really doesn't mean much. And I agree with Supervisor Keller that if something passes by one vote, only a majority, and you're sending that to the state saying that all of us agree one way or the other on that, is just not right. And some of these things we get, it takes a lot of digging into to find out what it means. I don't take the time to do that. That's not our job here. That's the state legislator's job. We all have a representative, we all have a senator. They would take more out of it, and I've talked to a couple of them. They get more out of it if they get a one-on-one call from somebody, especially if you say I'm on the Winnebago County Board, rather than these resolutions. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Rasmussen. Supervisor Hogan?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree with Supervisor Keller. I think if we are sending a unified message, that it ought to be 3/4 of those supervisors. I was hoping if somebody could let us know how, especially for the new supervisors, how often we do these sorts of things, that we express support or opposition regarding any proposed state or federal legislation, I think, or on particularly any recent support or opposition that this board has expressed at all. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Hosen. Supervisor Wojciechowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll address the intent of the actual resolution after we get through the amendment. But in regards to the amendment, I don't necessarily have a problem with making it 3/4. The original intent of keeping it at 2/3 was because when we talked about this in the past, that was one of the major concerns, that when we bring forward an opinion on something in the state or federal level, that could have a positive or negative effect on our county, that we would have more of a unifying message if we were 2/3. The actual changing that was meant to be made was about whether people were present or not, should they be counted. I can talk about that later when we get to the actual resolution, but on the matter of the 3/4, I would rather us keep it at 2/3 to kind of reach that coming together and making more of a unified message when we send it to the state or federal government. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a clarification, so everyone's clear before we would potentially vote if there aren't any other comments. So this was an amendment to change it to a simple majority of those members present for passage for item 11. Okay? So then we'll vote by our machine. All those in favor of that amendment, vote aye. All those opposed, vote nay. And that motion fails 12 to 24. So now we're back to the actual original amendment. Any discussion in regards to the amendment? Supervisor Wojciechowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. All right. So the reason why I brought this resolution forward was not to change the 2/3. I wanted to keep that for the reasons I stated earlier. Really the only change that came to this was changing it from 2/3 of the entire county board to a 2/3 of the members present. We've had a few resolutions that were brought up in the last session that were that to take action on items that were at the state level. One was to do with fair districting with the maps, and another was with the resolution I brought forward before, and they had a 2/3 of the members present, but because there were about 6 or 7 members that were absent at those meetings, they technically counted as noes, so the resolution failed. So it was simply to address that issue of people not being there counting as no votes, because I think that if you're not at the meeting, you shouldn't count as a no towards the resolution. We don't get paid when we're not at a meeting. I believe if the item on the agenda is of importance to you, that they'll show up to the meeting or at least send an email or some message saying how they support or don't support this measure. So this is really a way just to kind of fix that error that I think kind of was a hurdle of trying to pass measures like this. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Wojciechowski. Supervisor Keller.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I understand the supervisor's concern about members not being present and that affecting the vote. I would still like to see, I would like to make an amendment to this resolution. I would like to change line 11 from require two-thirds vote to require three-quarters vote of the members present for passage. I believe that we still want to send a strong message, and I think by doing so, we will be doing that, and that's why I'm making this amendment. Reducing it to two-thirds would reduce the number of supervisors it requires to send a message to legislators. Keeping it at three-quarters and understand of those present makes more sense. So I would request this amendment. Thank you.
Okay, so the amendment is, and and correct me if I'm wrong, Corporation Counsel, that it is actually a minor change. The number is 3/4, but his amendment is 3/4 of the members present, whereas our board says 3/4 vote of the membership of the board. So the present has to do with those present at an actual meeting versus, right. Thank you, Corporation Counsel. So it is that change, so it would be a 3/4 of the members present at a given meeting versus 3/4 of the board, whether 36 members or not are present or not. So it is a change, correct. So that was an amendment. Is there a second to that? Okay, and there is a second. Then discussion in regards to the amendment. Supervisor Fari.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. How would this affect, now I read it as any resolution, how would this affect bonding, which requires a 3/4 vote?
Not every resolution, it's just, this
Only
amendment-
dealing with state or federal
This
regulations?
amendment only applies to legislative committee.
Okay.
And also, it only applies to resolutions that they bring before the board in relationship to pending legislation.
Okay,
So
this,
if they bring a resolution to the board to declare May Bicycle Month in Winnebago County, that doesn't need a 3/4 vote, it's just a majority.
I understand, thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Fari. Supervisor Finch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I can live with 3/4. Actually, I could have lived with 51% because I was voted by the people. And yeah, we're going to send this to the Senate or Congress, wherever, but it's going to be Winnebago County. It's not going to give all our names to it. So I think we can live with the 3/4, and I hope everybody else will support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Finch. Supervisor Norton.
Mr. Chairman, I'll reiterate what I said at the beginning. 3/4, which was right now, it would be harder, it would be easier to amend this rule a month from now or in the future, because it only takes 2/3 votes, than it would to pass a resolution for legislation that we support. I think that's kind of ludicrous. I mean, no, I don't think anything else that we do requires 3/4 votes. I could be wrong. And if it is, it's financial. It's not all financial stuff. I just think that bar of 3/4 is a little bit too high. I'll agree, and that's why I agreed to have only 2/3, that it has to be a significant majority of those that you want to pass this legislation. I get that message. I got that 2 years ago, get that today. But the 3/4 is a little bit too high. I think 2/3 is reasonable. That's 66% or less. I think that's more than reasonable. That's why I think 3/4 is a little too high.
Thank you, Supervisor Norton. Supervisor Egan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I can go along with 2/3 or 3/4 as long as it's with the people that are here. That's the big thing, because when you've got to go ahead with the ones that aren't here, then it gets way out of balance. My thing is why I really want to come back on, Supervisor Hogan asked before, how many of these do we actually have? We actually don't have an awful lot of them ourselves. We get a lot of them from other counties that we go ahead and act on that. But ourselves, we do have some, but not an awful lot.
Thank you, Supervisor Egan. Supervisor Wojciechowski.
Thank you,
On the
Mr. Chairman. So when I originally brought this forward, I think this is actually a typo on my part. I was intentionally meaning to keep the 3/4, keep it exactly how it was presented, but just change the membership present as opposed. I'm certainly not opposed to making it 3/4. I do think that makes it more difficult considering I don't think there's any other resolutions that we normally vote 3/4. There could be, but not very many do. I think 2/3 is a good compromise as opposed to doing a majority, and then as opposed to doing 3/4. I think either way, 2/3 is still a good amount of us agreeing and still sends a strong message. But just to the point of bringing, what the supervisor said about bringing these resolutions forward, I think this will help alleviate that hurdle and maybe, what's the word? Sorry, encourage people to bring more resolutions like this forward, knowing that, it's not going to be automatically dismissed. So I think that this also helps encourage us to take more of a leading role in saying our voice on issues that affect us. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Wojciechowski. Seeing no other members to speak, we'll move to the vote. So this is voting on the amendment to the resolution, essentially the amendment to the amendment. Line item 11, to change it to require a 3/4 vote of those members present for passage. So all those in favor, vote aye on your pad. All those opposed, vote nay. Supervisor Robo? The motion passes 22-14. So now we are on the resolution as amended. Any discussion on the resolution as amended? Okay. So we'll go ahead and do a voice vote since it's essentially the same that we're voting on. All those in favor of this resolution as amended, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right, moving on down then to the third resolution. Resolution 003-042018. Amend section 6.5 of the rules of the Winnebago County Board of Supervisors to allow the public to offer comments on any matter over which the Winnebago County Board has jurisdiction. Supervisor Wojciechowski.
Thank you. I move for the approval of resolution number 3.
So there's a motion and a second in regards to the resolution. Any discussion? Supervisor Warnicki.
Well, the first thing that I want to say is to talk to Mr. Bogner. Well, John, I got to ask you a question about this. It wasn't too long ago that the Aviation Committee wanted to do the same thing and let them talk on anything on the agenda, or even if it wasn't on the agenda, and you said that it was in the statutes that we can't do this.
Well, no, that's not exactly what I said, but what I said is this, your county board rules at the present time provide that anything that's spoken on, spoken or addressed to by the public at a meeting has to be on the agenda. Now, you can change your rules to allow the public to come in and speak about anything. I think the present resolution, or which is on the floor, would allow people to speak on any issue that is of interest to the county, and that would be up to the chair to determine how that's defined. But I would say if somebody wants to talk about flying saucers landing on their front lawn, that's not something you're going to allow. However, the key and the problem that you can get into with regard to this is under the open meetings law, if you are going to have any type of discussion with the people in the back of the room, in relationship to this, then you need to stop and you need to put it on the agenda for the next meeting. So you can allow them to come in here and talk about whether you should have ryegrass or bluegrass planted at the county park. That's fine, but if you, Mr. Warnke, or one of the other supervisors wants to get involved in a debate or talk about it extensively, you can't do that. That's a violation of the open meetings law. You're going to have to stop and put it on the agenda for the next meeting. Now, I think you can ask them a question such as, are you talking about the county park on County Park Y, or are you talking about the county park, another county park? That's fine, you know, a question like that. But if you're going to talk about that, you're going to get into debate with them, then you got a problem. My concern is, having worked here for 28, 29 years with the county board, many of you can't refrain from getting into debates with people. And
Absolutely true.
and I can't see people like Mr. Wingren saying, for example, geez, I really can't debate this with you. Maybe we should put this on, Mr. Chair, can we put this on the agenda for the next meeting? People want to sit there and argue with them or talk to them or debate them, and you can't do that if it's not on the agenda. But if you have it on the agenda, that public comment will be allowed on any topic of interest to the county, that's fine. You just can't debate with them or get into a discussion with them. So the question is, can you restrain from doing that?
Anything further, Supervisor Warnke?
Well, I guess then I need to allow this on the aviation committee.
No, you don't. I mean, it's county board rule right now that you're not allowed to have it. You're voting on a rules change right now. If you vote on that rules change and you agree to do that, you could, if you want to, allow that at the aviation committee. But the rules of the county board for county board meetings don't necessarily apply to the committee meetings. And there is no state law that requires you to have public discussion at any meeting. I mean, what you do right now, the county board has a public discussion with regard to things that are on the agenda right now. You are not required to do that under state law. You're doing that discretionarily. So you can have it, you can leave it wide open, you can have it what you have now, or you can have no discussion. And what the county board does doesn't necessarily mean that a committee chairman has to allow the same thing. But in the past, your county board has basically limited it to just things on the agenda, and that does provide protection to the community. It provides people it provides assistance to you, people just coming in and talking about anything they want to.
So what you're basically saying is people can make a statement about something, but we cannot discuss it.
Well, right now, people can only make a discussion on what's on the agenda. The amendment would allow people to make a statement on anything that's of interest, general interest to the county. So if you vote yes on this, if Joe Smith comes in and he wants to talk about what kind of grass seed you plant at the county park and talk about it for 3 or 4 minutes, he's going to be allowed to do that. But you can't debate with him on that or ask him anything of substantive value. Then it's going to have to go on the county board agenda for the next meeting.
Seems kind of cloudy to me, but okay.
All right.
Thank you, Supervisor Warnke. Supervisor Eisen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to deliver a written copy of an amendment a substitute amendment that I wish the chair to entertain. And I'll allow you to read it, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
It's pretty clear.
So this is a substitute amendment really for this entire resolution. This resolution relates to the amendment of section 6.5. His resolution is a substitute motion to add the following line on the end of Rule 6.5. So I will read Rule 6.5. Rule 6.5 said, public comments will be heard by the board only on those resolutions and ordinances on the adopted agenda for that meeting. His amendment would add, but no discussion or action will be taken. So that's,
Amendment, it just goes back to old rule where they can't speak on anything. I mean, that's my, I'll let Mr. Bodnar speak on it, but I think the amendment's out of order.
okay, let's let the Corporation Council answer that question.
Can I see that? I mean, you do have a rule in effect right now, Mr. Eisen, that says every amendment, every resolution shall be reduced to block form and provided to the supervisors prior to the meeting. You didn't do that. Now, if you want to, let me finish. Now, if you want to make an amendment, you can make an amendment, but you can't just come in and provide a whole new resolution.
This is an amendment, Mr. Corporation Counsel. If you just look at it, all I did was strike out all the new verbiage that was in the amendment and added a substitute in its place.
Okay, before we go any further, before we go any further, Supervisor Eisen, there was the amendment, but was there a second? So the amendment, was there a second? Okay.
Because how you presented this was as a substitute resolution, if I'm not correct. I believe I'm correct with regard to that. You didn't present it as an amendment.
How to describe it?
Well,
The
it's not-
substitute is the
Okay,
same as an
okay,
amendment.
hold on, Supervisor Eisen. So you brought it to me to read it, and that was under the assumption that you asked me to read it as an amendment for you, correct? So was there a second to that amendment?
Well, I don't think people know what the amendment was, Mr. Chairman. The amendment says that he wants to amend 6.5 to say, public comments will be heard by the board only on those resolutions and ordinances on the adopted agenda for the meeting, but no discussion or action will be taken, and I assume he means on those resolutions and ordinance, or will be taken. That's, and I don't know what will be taken exactly means.
Yeah. So we're gonna move on from that amendment. So we're back to the original amendment. Any further discussion? Supervisor Smith?
No discussion on this amendment. I was going to, on the original resolution.
And we are now on the original resolution.
Okay, thank you. The problem I have with the original resolution is having people come in and talk about it. I think it could be changed or amended to require that anybody that wants to speak on a subject not on the agenda would notify the clerk, just like we have to when we're putting amendments in, at least 24 hours before a county board meeting, or 48 hours, excuse me, 48 hours before the county board meeting, so that if there was to be any discussion from, about anything brought up by a citizen in the gallery, and that we could do it at that meeting. Otherwise, as I understood from Mr. Bogner, they would have to wait to bring it up at the next county board meeting. Did I understand that right?
Well, first of all, under your present county board rules, you're required to have anything that you want on the agenda, and there aren't any resolutions tonight to amend that. You are required to have anything that you want on the agenda provided to the clerk and to my office at least a week before the meeting.
Okay, so that's...
It's not 48 hours.
Okay.
And you need to understand that the clerk has to get this stuff out to you folks. Right now, you allow us, your favored method of doing it is by mail. There's going to be a resolution that comes in next week to do this by email, but you still need some time to put this together and give notice to the county. So, but I guess going back to your original point, Mr. Smith, is if you want to discuss what somebody brings up in the back of the room and it's not on the agenda, you need to put it on the agenda for the next meeting.
Okay.
It's got to be posted, okay?
Okay, I agree to that, and I agree with that idea that they cannot discuss it if they bring it up from the gallery.
Well, it's not an idea, it's state law. I
Or
mean,
state law.
yeah, I mean, otherwise you folks are going to get into problems with the open meetings law.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Supervisor Smith. Supervisor Rasmussen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I believe within the last year, we had this before the board, and we had a long discussion on it. Same discussion we're having today. It was defeated then. Here's some of the things you're going to get. I believe Mr. Bodnar talked about they want a different kind of grass growing at the park. Given the weather we just had in the last week, do you know how many people would be at this meeting telling us the road didn't get plowed? Stuff like that. Do you know how long these meetings would get if you just start letting everybody talk about everything that they want to? We all have a district. We all have a phone number in there. We all have an email address in there. That's why we have districts. We have constituents. That's what we're in there for. If somebody has something to say, they need to talk to us direct. In my opinion, someone that comes back there, sits back there to bring something up, it's because for whatever reason they don't want to talk to you face to face or on the phone. For those new members, and I'm on the town board for the town of Algoma, and we used to have the situation like that where they could talk about anything. And it just made the meeting so long. It's just what I said. They'd come up there with things, and you couldn't have a discussion with them. All you'd have to say is, well, we're not dealing with that. You'll just get all kinds of stuff in here. So when we changed that rule in the town, it significantly reduced our meetings. We still have the same rule. They can come and talk to anybody at any time. So I urge you to not support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Rasmussen. Supervisor Shorsey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am speaking against this resolution. And for those of you who have been in the business world, it is a practice of businesses to have the boards set the agenda. The rest of the organization does not set the agenda. So it is a standard practice of boards to do that. If we are, and I understand the sentiment behind wanting to give people a voice, if we wanted to do that, then we should talk about something separate from these meetings, some kind of an open forum or, a county meeting, or not meeting, but county listening session or something like that. But I am not in favor, because it is not the practice of good functioning boards to let other people set the agenda.
Thank you, Supervisor Shorsey. Supervisor Wojciechowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just have a few points I want to bring up because we have talked about this a year ago or so, and the reason why it was brought up was because we had a few problems where people relating to the racetrack came in and they didn't give the notice, but it was a pressing issue that they wanted to talk about, and they were turned away, and it really wouldn't have been much trouble to just let them speak, but at the time we had to follow the rules, so that's understandable. But we're changing this to, one, give people the opportunity to participate, be more involved. We are a government, we're elected by people, they want to participate. We're not a business. The chair has the discretion to cut people off if they're talking about things that don't relate to us, or they have the ability to set the limit. When we had the people come talk about the racetrack, the past chairman set it to 5 minutes, I believe, per person, or they could set it to a minute per person when we get this many people. I don't think we should worry about our meeting times getting longer because this is why we're doing it. We're here to serve the people, to let them speak on issues that are affecting them. I don't think we're going to have people coming in talking about issues that are silly. We might get 1 or 2 people, but that's just, it's going to happen and we can't stop it. But I mean, if we do have situations like that, we do have the chairman to stop them from wasting our time. I just think we shouldn't make it harder for people to participate. This is a simple resolution. Me, Supervisor Wingren, and Supervisor Norton all had separate resolutions, but when they were presented, the Corporation Council kind of created this one to accommodate all of our resolutions into one. And I think it really comes to a compromise. It doesn't create a separate section for open forum. It combines it into this one, and it really holds us a little bit more accountable so we aren't debating with people. We have to watch ourselves and not punish people coming in and talking on things that they think are important. With that, I will yield.
Thank you, Supervisor Wojciechowski. Supervisor Wingren.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, or should I say, thank you, Dr. Chairman, which is,
Whichever one you prefer, Bill.
all right, Shiloh. This is a very important issue to me, and it should be to all of us. 2 weeks ago, we went to the people and said, please vote for us. We'd like to represent you on the county board. Not we'd like you to be part of our little group, and you're going to represent us. No, it works the other way. The people choose their representatives. We're here to listen to the people. Thank God this is not the business world. They got enough problems without running this like a business. Meetings are far too long. My golly, did you say that when you were running for office? Geez, please elect me to the county board, but I only go for an hour, 2 hours, and by God, we're not going to stay too long and listen to you. To me, this is a First Amendment issue. The people who elect us to represent them have a right to be represented on this board, and that means be listened to. They have a right to petition their government for a redress of grievances. That's the First Amendment, folks. It's the First Amendment. We need to represent them and listen to them. This is not really anything that's threatening us. It's any matter that over which the board has jurisdiction, and it gives the chairman the power to say, no, you're off base here. And I'm sure that our new chairman will do that. So let's let the people speak, and let's do our job, which is to represent them and allow them their First Amendment rights. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Wingren. Supervisor Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My only comment would be, I'm a little hesitant on this, although I'm probably going to vote for it, but I would beg the chair that when this comes about, if this passes, that when we are allowing people to speak in the public, that we set a time limit and we stick to that time limit and not let it go on and on and on, thinking, well, he's kind of making a good point. No, you got a certain amount of time to do it and cut them off when they're done.
Thank you, Supervisor Powers. Supervisor Wallen.
So I was going to do an amendment at the end of 25. After the sentence, add each member of the public would have a maximum of 5 minutes of talk time. From my understanding, Common Council has something similar of 5-minute talk time. So that wouldn't.
I'll second that amendment, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, so there is an amendment to the resolution, and that would be in line item number 25, right where it says the meeting agenda. It would say each member of the public would have 5 minutes, as he described, of talk time. And there is a second. So on the amendment, Supervisor Snyder.
No, on the original.
Okay. Thank you. Supervisor Wojciechowski on the amendment.
Yes. I agree with the sentiment of the amendment. I just think it takes the power away from the chair to limit, under what he thinks is necessary amount of time. I mean, if we have 2 people speaking in here and they're talking about important things, I think they might need a little more than 5 minutes. Whereas if we have 30 people, 5 minutes might be too much for each person. So I really think putting this amendment out there limits the power that the chairman has in setting the time structure. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Wojciechowski. Supervisor Finch on the amendment.
Yes, 5 minutes is way too long, or rather, any way you want to look at it. I've been here a long time. I've seen where we're sitting there listening to people, not just one meeting, but the following months, the same stuff. Everybody has that right to speak. I don't have a problem with that. But I'd rather see it go down to 2 minutes, 3 minutes, whatever. You start talking 5 minutes, 6 minutes, whatever, you're not going to get nothing done. You're going to be here until midnight without even getting a thing done. We've come close a couple different times with that. So I'd rather see whomever bring it down to, say, 2 minutes. And if the chair asks the committee, the supervisors, if there's only a couple of people, if they want to extend it, I think that's legal. John, am I right? If the chair asks to extend a 2-minute speaking, does he have that right to ask the supervisors if it would be okay?
Well, number one, whatever you put in your rules is what the chair is supposed to do.
Right.
Number two, if you leave it to his discretion, he certainly can do that. I mean, I would think that any chairman is going to use reasonable good sense with regard to that. So if it goes 2 minutes and 10 seconds, he's not going to cut the person off in mid-sentence. But, yeah, I mean, you set the rules as a county board for the chairman to follow.
Thank you. I mean, like I said, I've seen that whole back gallery full, and almost everybody talked. Now, you take 50 people. That's very close to 2 hours, and we haven't got a thing done on our agenda. All right? And like I said, I believe people have that right to talk, but I'd rather see it 2 minutes and go from there. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Finch. I'll call on Supervisor Lenz. His pad is not working, so we'll have him speak prior to Supervisor Egan.
I don't have anything on the current amendment. I was having technical issues at the time. My comment was on the previous one.
All right, thank you. Supervisor Egan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate that so many of the new members are speaking up tonight. It's quite admirable. I remember when I first come, I didn't say much. But anyways, back what I should be talking on. I admire you for bringing up about times, because I had that written down here. But after listening to Supervisor Finch, I do have to agree. I think we've got our chairs up here. I think that's their responsibility. But if this does pass with that 5 minutes, does that mean they can talk only once for 5 minutes, or how many times can they talk? Is that a total of 5 minutes? Because sometimes we get some that gets up 2-3 times. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Wallen.
So I'm willing to change it to 3 if 5 is too long. If they do feel like it's like more specific to that question and they need longer to express their point, they can redo their 5 minute or 3 minutes if we're going to change it to 3 instead of 5.
So the amendment at the current time is 5. If you want to withdraw the amendment and offer a new amendment to the 3,
Can I just change it to withdraw it and resubmit it as a 3 instead of a 5?
is that
Just
okay
more
with the
reasonable.
second? Okay, so withdrawing the amendment, and he is replacing it with each member of the public would have 3 minutes of talk time. And so there's a motion and a second, so that is the amendment we are discussing right now. So Supervisor Keller, on the amendment.
On the amendment, I think it makes more sense for the chairman to review each case, each night, each county board meeting as to how it is going, whether they should have a time limit, and he can state that time limit, and he can change that time limit. I don't think we should take that power away from the chairman. I would vote against this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Supervisor Keller. Supervisor Norton.
I just want to rant, I guess I'm not of the opinion of whether this specific amendment passed or not, but we're talking about non-agenda related items. That means someone or some people are going to have to come to this board meeting and talk to something that's not on the agenda. I'll refer back to what maybe brought this, the controversial racetrack issue, where they came and the chairman wouldn't let them speak, and then we had someone on the agenda, and then he put in a 3-minute time limit. So I could go either way, but we're talking about non-agenda related items. I guess I could live with having the chairman have a discretion, because, like I say, the chairman at that time, last June, gave a 3-minute time limit to everyone, and that was for an agenda item. And I'm going to speak a little bit, the passage for this amendment, not the amendment, but the proposed resolution, because a gentleman came before us last month and asked for this. He said, make it easier to get things on the agenda. He not only came and spoke before us, he also wrote a letter to the editor. I don't think that by letting people speak on non-agenda items is going to make these meetings from an hour and a half to a 4 or 5 hour meeting. I think that's ludicrous. I really do. I've been here 18 years. I'm sorry I'm probably out of line, Mr. Chairman, but like I say, on the amendment to go either way, but this is on non-agenda related items.
Thank you, Supervisor Norton. Supervisor Konecki.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I concur with Supervisor Kellett that leaving up the discretion of the chairman as to the length of time that the person can speak, how many people are there. Don't put a time limit on it. Thank you. Or set a time.
Thank you, Supervisor Konecki. With no further call-ins, then I would ask that we vote with our pin pad for the amendment, which is to add, after the meeting agenda, it would say each member of the public would have 3 minutes of talk time. Vote aye. And then that was your intent, so a maximum of 3 minutes of talk time. So vote aye if you approve of that amendment, vote no if you don't. And that motion fails, 12 to 24. So now we are on the original resolution number 3. Other discussion in regards to the resolution. Supervisor Snyder.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On Town of Winneconne agendas, we do allow people to speak to non-agendized item, but only to propose them for future agendas. On our agendas, it says a member of the public can also suggest items for future agendas, but no debate is allowed until agendized. And I really think that that's the way to go.
Thank you, Supervisor Snyder. Supervisor Lenz. Once again, Supervisor Lenz, unfortunately, his pad is not working, so I'll call on Supervisor Lenz.
Did I just hear a second for that previous one? Okay, so
I didn't hear an amendment. Did you make an amendment, Supervisor
Yes,
Snyder?
the
I
amendment.
apologize, I didn't hear that. If you could read
sorry.
it then.
What I would do, I was going to make a flippant comment. I was an English literature major, and this looks, this entire 6.5 looks like it was written by an English literature major. I would strike everything after the period behind meeting, and it begins if a member of the public raises a subject that does not appear, and I would insert, a member of the public can also suggest items for future agendas, but no debate is allowed until agendized.
Okay, so was there a second? Yes, there was a second. So the amendment is, and you may have to help me with this one, item on line 20, after for that meeting, a member of the public can also suggest items for future agenda, but there can be no debate on that item at the meeting.
Correct.
Correct? And then it would strike everything afterward where it says if a member of all the way to meeting agenda.
Correct.
Okay, so there was a motion and a second to that amendment. Discussion in regards to that, Supervisor Wojciechowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I really think that this is, I understand the intent. I think it's just more semantics now because I really think that this already addresses kind of what this amendment does. I don't think it stops the person who's speaking from asking if we can put this on the agenda. I believe if they're here knowing that we can't debate it, their intention is to have it eventually as a debatable item. Maybe, maybe not, but I think if they're really passionate about this topic and want to have debate over it or a vote on it, they'll mention that when they're here speaking. So I think what we have now is good and really addresses the issues that this amendment is trying to address.
Thank you, Supervisor Wojciechowski. Supervisor Rasmussen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Tom behind me here, I can understand where that works at the town level because you don't have so many people, but I'm wondering if someone comes in here and requests something to be on a future agenda, who determines if that's really going to be on the agenda? Because I could see where that could get out of hand at a county level. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Rasmussen. I'll call on Supervisor Defferting, and then afterward it'll be Supervisor Lenz, because once again, his pad is not working. Supervisor Defferting.
I think this is a pretty a good medium between the two. We do represent the people, so we have to listen to them. That is our job. That's why we are here. At the same time, yes, we don't want to get buried into spending 4 or 5 hours talking about things that are not on the agenda. So this is a good way for people to speak their mind and for us to do our job servicing the people, but at the same time not getting buried, in debate over this. So this is a happy medium, in my opinion.
Thank you, Supervisor Defferting. Supervisor Lenz.
All right. I just wanted to state that, however it's worded, I believe that it's the right direction to give the constituents an opportunity another channel to communicate what they want the board to do in the direction they want us to head. I'd also like to state that for some people it is hard to do a one-on-one conversation with somebody who's in a position of power. And as I've experienced when I was on the Neenah Joint School District School Board, it's good for folks to be able to come in and give us some ideas. It also gives them a chance to overcome that struggle of the one-on-one conversation by being able to come with a family member, friend, or somebody else that supports that idea.
Thank you, Supervisor Lenz. Supervisor Binder.
I know when possible, I try to watch the city council meeting. I think the population for the city is around 70,000. They have it where you can talk at the beginning, at the end of the meeting. Usually there's lucky if there's 1 or 2 people that address the council. I mean, we say we want citizens' input, and yet in 2 years, we had the roundabout and we had the racetrack. Other than that, there's nobody sitting in the back. I really don't think that we're gonna get 15 or 20 people that are gonna take up a half hour of our time. And if they do, I guess that's what we're here for. If they need change in Winnebago County, that's what they're here to do, is address us so we can get the stuff done for them. So I would suggest that we let them talk.
Thank you, Supervisor Binder. Supervisor Keller.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I assume we're still talking about the amendment?
That is correct. We are talking about the
As I don't believe the
amendment
last two
to the
supervisors-
original resolution. That is
Yeah,
correct.
As I don't believe the last 2 supervisors were talking about the amendment. But on the amendment, I don't think it's necessary to add that citizens can suggest an agenda item. I think that is inherent in bringing up a discussion, and then the chairman or other supervisors can put it on the agenda. I don't think we should put this in this rule, because I think citizens looking at the rule and seeing that on there as suggest an agenda item would feel that what they suggest will be on the agenda item. So I would like to avoid that. So I'm against this amendment, and I hope it does not pass. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Keller. Supervisor Shorsey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just an aside thought, I'm a little concerned when I listen to all of the discussion here that we think that we have to change our practices so we have people come here and talk to the full board, when we as individual supervisors have a responsibility to be connecting with our neighbors. And I personally have been invited to a neighborhood association to talk about county stuff. So I'm concerned that, that we're not really doing our jobs fully if we're not out there with the people in our districts and trying to connect in various ways and listening to what they have to say. I know I got an earful when I went around for signatures, and it was good stuff. I mean, it was really good. So maybe to think more creatively about how you make connections in your districts rather than this direction.
Thank you, Supervisor Shorsey. Supervisor Norton, on the amendment.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I would be against this amendment because I think it would limit it in some ways. I think if we don't leave it open and let people just talk on anything, it would limit you discussion for, and my example would be not an agenda for our county party, our county board meeting, for one of our committees. Let's say someone came in and said they want the health department to do this, that, and other thing. Then I would say you would think to put it on the health board agenda. If someone came in and said someone will do highways or whatever, I would think we would do what the city in Oshkosh does when someone comes before them, for me, they ask that department head to look into it. I think that opens up the communication. And what I disagree with Supervisor Scorsese, we had someone, and I'm going to repeat it again, we had someone who came before us last month, an individual who wrote a letter to the editor who said we should make ways, easier ways to talk to the whole county board, not just his supervisor, but the whole county board. So like I say, I would be against this amendment because I think it's limiting. I think that we should keep open and let you come speak in anything that county government has to deal with or can appropriate or deal with in the future.
Thank you, Supervisor Norton. Supervisor Smith on the amendment to the resolution.
Okay, this is a little reflection on the amendment. Back when we had all those discussions on the racetrack, I talked to probably about a half a dozen people. I asked them who their county board supervisor was. Only one knew who their county board supervisor was. So my suggestion would be, and I'm against this amendment, I'm going to vote against it, but the county board chairman has the option of allowing the people that present something forward to let them know who their county board supervisor is, and that person can suggest to their county board supervisor to place that on the agenda for the following meeting. And I think that would be the most efficient way to do it.
Thank you, Supervisor Smith. Supervisor Konecki on the amendment?
I'm for no amendment, and I concur once again to Mr. Keller. I think that just the way I would like to see it. Let them speak. He can get out of hand. The chairman can set the rules, cut them off, or put that on the agenda for another time. Let them come and speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Konecki. Seeing no one further, we'll go to a vote. And just to clarify, this is an amendment to the resolution, not actually voting on the resolution yet. And the amendment was, in line 20, to add a member of the public can also suggest items for a future agenda, but there will be no debate on the item, and the rest would be stricken after that. So that is what you're voting on. Vote aye if you approve. Vote nay if you don't. And that amendment fails, 11 to 25. So we are back to the resolution. Any further discussion on the resolution? If not, we will call for a vote. So we are voting on the original resolution now. Okay, so we will do this by our iPads. Vote aye if you approve, vote nay if you don't. And that motion passes 25 to 11. All right, so moving on down to the fourth resolution. So resolution number 004-042018. Amend section 24.5 of the rules of the Winnebago County Board of Supervisors to provide that the chair of the Emergency Management Committee and the Veteran Service Commission serve as members of the Legislative Committee. Supervisor Wingren.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move to bring this to the board for its consideration.
So there's a motion and a second,
I'd like to speak to this.
and please go right ahead, Supervisor Wingren.
Before someone asks, I guess that person is here to ask, I voted no. That is the one. The legislative committee was set up a long time ago. Winnebago County had a paid lobbyist. The legislative committee was set up to replace that system, and the idea was to have a cross-section of the board meet and discuss issues of legislative intent, have our state legislators, federal legislators come or send a representative so we could listen to them or they could listen to us. The representatives of this board were the chairs of the various committees. The Judiciary Committee is, as an example here, is the same body as the Emergency Management Committee. Same people serve on that committee, same 5 members. So if this amendment were to pass, whoever's on the Judiciary Committee, remember, this has nothing to do with any person here now, because all committees will be selected this Friday. So the Judiciary Committee, if this were the case, would have 2 representatives, and that wouldn't be right. So I personally am opposed, although the other members of the committee, by a vote of 3-1, said they wanted this.
Thank you, Supervisor Wingren. Supervisor Norton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I should explain why my name is on this. And my wordage that I added was on line 25, and I added the words, "or the vice chair in the absence of the chair." Currently, it's only the chairman who can represent the committee, and I guess that's a little bit too limiting. I think if the chairman cannot attend, I think the vice chair should be able to attend, and that was my wordage, and I would hope at least that would stay in the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Norton. Supervisor Egan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I understand where Supervisor Wingren's coming from, and it makes a lot of sense, but this legislative committee seems like it's getting smaller and smaller a lot of times. And these people that are on here are people that kept coming all the time, and were very vocal in this group. Like it or not, they ask a lot of good questions and that. And sometimes this is what we need, is for our legislators to hear this. If they don't hear what we're talking about, we were talking not too long ago about votes, well, here we're actually eye to eye. And so to me, the more people that's there talking to these legislators, the better off that we are. And so I'll definitely be supporting this, and I ask all of you to support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Egan. Supervisor Wojciechowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, I mean, essentially based off what Supervisor Wingren said, if Judiciary Committee and the, what is the other, Emergency Management Committee are the same things, I would see that as a problem if they had, 2 votes or more representation than other committees. I certainly support the resolution about adding the other committee, the Veteran Service Commission, on there, because I think they have a lot of matters that pertain to legislative issues, so they should definitely be on there. But I would be for creating an amendment which strikes the Emergency Management Committee from the resolution.
And can you specify in which lines you are referring to? Are you referring to lines 17 and 18?
Yes, just including Veteran Service Commission, not having the Emergency Management Committee on there, because, for the reasons that Supervisor Wingren stated. I don't know exactly what lines it says it adds them to it, but crossing out Emergency Management Committee and just leaving Veteran Service Commission.
Okay, so there's an amendment to remove the chair of the Emergency Management Board as part of the resolution, which would be in between line 17 and 18, where it says, important that it would be removal, chair of the Emergency Management Board, and the word and then also in the title, it would remove Emergency Management Committee, because it would say chair of the Veteran Service Commission. Does everyone understand that amendment? And there was a motion and a second in regards to that. So discussion in regards to the amendment. Supervisor Fari.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Originally, there wasn't, but are we going to divide the question between Mr. Norton's part of this and the part of this resolution brought forward by Judiciary? Am I correct? There's 2 separate ones here?
No, that's the same, his name is on it, but it is the same resolution.
Okay, well then, in that case, I'm looking to see if he has it listed under line 27, 8, or 9 here, so give me a minute. I believe he does not have emergency management in there. Is that correct? Would you
That is
concur?
correct.
Okay. That satisfies my question.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Fari. Supervisor Eisen, on the amendment.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If you get out your rules and you look at sections 23.1, you'll see that emergency management committee chair is listed there. And that would be inclusive in this resolution. So the procedure that we're on the path to is incorrect. Reason I know is because I chaired the Emergency Management Committee in the last legislative session. And I attended legislative committee. And before I became chair of emergency management 4 years ago, I went to all the legislative committee meetings on my own nickel because I wasn't chair of any other committee, and so I was not a member. In fact, in one legislative committee meeting, I was reported as absent, but I wasn't actually a member of that legislative committee. But nonetheless, at 2 meetings ago, the chairman announced that someone brought to the attention of the chairman that the emergency management chairman is not listed in the rules. And so as an accommodation, it was brought that the emergency management chairman ought to be a member. However, at the Judiciary Committee, the chairman of the committee didn't go into the details of his reason for that he's been presented today, but that's nonetheless. But to get to the point, you have to make a change in line 27, and I think you should probably refer this to the Corporation Council so that you do it right. I don't support it. I don't know if I'll be on the Judiciary Committee. I don't know if I chair the Emergency Management Committee. But if you're going to do the rules, do it right.
Thank you, Supervisor Eisen. Supervisor Norton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I oppose this, and I oppose this because we're keeping one of the committees recommended to be part of the chairman to be part of this, Veteran Service Commission, but not keeping Emergency Government Committee. But even though the Emergency Government Committee has 5 county board members, and the Veteran Service Commission could have, as I believe, both citizen members and county board members, I have a little too big problem with that. If someone wants to amend it to strike both those committees that were proposed, Veteran Service Committee and Chair of the Emergency Government, I'd consider that. But in the present state where we're striking the chairman of a committee made of 5 county board members, I do have a problem with that. So I'm against this amendment.
Thank
Mr. Chairman, if I might rise to a point of order, based on what I've just heard, I will withdraw my second to that motion.
All right, so he's withdrawn his second to the motion. Okay. All right, Supervisor Wojciechowski. And so, just to clarify, if there wasn't a second to that motion, then we're not debating that amendment further. Okay? So we are now back on the original resolution.
Thank you. Yeah, I was, after hearing that, I was a little confused as I thought the Emergency Management Committee and the Judiciary were the same committee, so there was a little confusion. But now seeing that they're actually separate committees, then I would have rescinded that amendment. So thank you for the clarifications from everyone. I'll just say that I do support this resolution because I believe that these are 2 important committees that should have a voice on legislative issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Wojciechowski. Supervisor Snyder.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think now I'm a little confused. If in section 23.1, the Emergency Management Board is listed as a standing committee, as it says on line 27, then why do we even mention that in line 17? If we want to add the Veteran Service Commission, that's fine. But I don't believe if it's already a member, if they're already a member of a standing committee, and as in 23.1, it shouldn't be necessary to mention it in line 17 of this resolution.
Thank you, Supervisor Snyder. I think we need a little bit of a clarification here, because this is specifically referring to the legislative committee, but our rules do specify in a different section the members of the legislative committee under 24.5, where it says those committees listed in sections 24.1 through 24.4, which would be University of Wisconsin Extension Ag, Aviation Committee Facilities, Planning and Zoning, and then 24.6 through 24.12, which would be Judiciary itself, Parks and Rec, Parkview, Personnel, and Finance, Highway Department, Land Conservation, and Information Systems. Correct? Maybe if you can clarify, Corporation Counsel?
Yeah. What you did years ago was you have the Judiciary and Public Safety Committee, but then you're required by state law to have a County Emergency Management Committee. And you decided that the Judiciary and Public Safety Committee should also serve as the County Emergency Management Committee in Section 323.141A3 of the statutes. So let's envision it this way. The same people, but they're wearing different hats on different days. And you have, and my understanding is you have a different chairman of each committee. So I believe that, I guess I would say right now that the County Emergency Management Committee, because it is part of 24.6, that is a committee that's referred to, and the committee head should be a member of the legislative committee the way the rules stand at the present time. Because you do have two separate committees. You know, one day they're wearing a Brewers hat, the next day they're wearing a Cubs hat.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification. Supervisor Eisen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And the change to the rules in the resolution simply says sections 23.1 through 24.2. And that's where you're bringing in the emergency management chairman, because 24.5 does not include emergency management. 23.1 does. And that's the way that the chairman of the Judiciary Committee explained it when I simply wanted to say, make the chairman a member, just say emergency management, and as well as the Veterans Commission. But he insisted that it be worded in this fashion, and that's the way it is. So it is what it is.
Thank you, Supervisor Eisen. Supervisor Fari.
My question been answered, thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Fari. Supervisor Egan.
My question's been answered. Thank you.
Thank you. And Supervisor Wingren.
Really simple. If you want the emergency management chair to be on the legislative committee, fine. Then vote yes. If you don't, then vote no. It's simple.
Thank you, Supervisor Wingren. Supervisor Snyder.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So are we leaving that wording in line 17 and 18? Emergency Management Board? And if that is also, if down in line 27, it says the committees shall, or 25 says committees shall be composed of the chair, and then down in 27, all those committees in section 23.1. And 23.1 says emergency management. So why is it necessary to mention it in line 17 and 18?
Thank you, Supervisor Snyder. For point of clarification, we'll go to Supervisor Egan.
I wasn't going to answer, but the reason this was brought up is I was chairman of the legislative at that time, and it was brought to my attention that they were not on the committee more than once. And so I brought it on there, just like the chairman just read. According to our rules on that, they are not on that committee. So that's why it's being brought up at this time to have them put on this committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Egan. Okay, seeing no one further, then we are voting on the original resolution. All those in favor say aye, oppose. We'll go by our pad. All those in favor say, vote aye. All those opposed, vote nay. And that motion carries 30-5 with one abstention. Okay, so moving on down to resolution number 5. Resolution number 005-042018, amend section 4.4 of the rules of the Winnebago County Board of Supervisors, amendments to the annual budget. Supervisor Norton.
I make a motion to approve or resolution 005-042018. This one and the next one are kind of tied. I brought it back 2 years ago. I'm going to bring it up back again. I just think that when we vote on amendments to the budget or vote on the budget totally, it should be done in the evening when we have all our other regular business meetings, 6 p.m. to 11:59 p.m. Time can be amended. I bring this forward a couple reasons. I bring this for last year, for the first time in my 18 years, I missed a vote on the budget. Why? Because I had to go to work. I'm amending it because the reason why I think it's wrong with the process, because so many years, almost every year, we get done with the budget hearing process at, and I'm going to pick any time, 2:15, and then the chairman would say, okay, we're going to take up amendments in a half hour, and if you're there, you're there, you're not, you're not. I think that's kind of wrong. It doesn't give every member of this board known when we're going to vote on amendments or the budget as a whole. It doesn't give the public any knowledge of when we're going to talk or vote on those amendments or the budget as a whole, so there's no transparency. This talk of that are going to come back, it's going to lengthen the budget session. I think it's a bunch of bulk. When I started here 18 years ago, our budget session would go on until Monday and last until Thursday. Last year it took, and we got done, I don't know what time, Tuesday afternoon sometime after 1:30, 2 o'clock when I had to go to work. I think it's needed because we have a number of board members that are coming on this board who have full-time jobs. This is a part-time job, and it's easier for them to schedule, whether it's full-time or part-time, whatever, when they know definitely when we're going to vote on something. That is why I say this is needed, and that we should do the business of the budget amendments or the budget at all at the time when we do our normal regular business between the hour of 6 p.m. and 11:59 p.m. on any day. The chairman has the power and the ability to set the date when that happens. It's also his duty to make sure that we get done in time so that we can do that. So that's why I'm proposing. The first one has to do what was proposed and the amendments and those changes. And the second one, if the first one doesn't pass, then the second one is kind of nonsense. Says that we will vote on the budget at night on any given day or of the budget session. So that's why I say, a number of years, I've seen, we have 36 members, and one year we went down to 25 members. So I think for transparency and for clarity, it's needed.
Thank you, Supervisor Norton. Supervisor Finch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I cannot go along with this resolution. In other words, if I'm understanding Supervisor Norton correctly, we get the budget done, say, at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So now we go home. Then we come back at 6 o'clock that night, or find something to do for X hours. Is he understanding also that we are allowed to, then I won't take any more money for per diems, but I will take mileage, If I'm gonna run all the way back to Fox Crossing, then come back, because one supervisor had to go to work one time, I have a problem with that. So I would personally feel that it should stay the way it is, because the simple fact that there's other people here that have other things to do, and they do try to find a way to make the budgets work. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Finch. Supervisor Rasmussen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, we've got a list, and it was an amended list tonight of when all of our meetings are. And according to this resolution, we don't know when that meeting's going to be because it says any day of that week. You know, we all have things in our lives that we plan around, and one thing we can do is put this on our calendar the way it is. People have different jobs, different schedules. We can't accommodate all of them. But this schedule is made out a year ahead of time, and it's our responsibility to get here when we can, and if we can't, so be it. Another side of this is if somebody has a full-time job and is not here for the whole budget session, then they're going to come back on one of the nights and then be voting on. I would think that you need to be here for the whole budget session to be able to vote on these amendments to it also. So I will not support this.
Thank you, Supervisor Rasmussen. Supervisor Norton.
To answer Supervisor Finch's question, I think how the budget hearing and the budget process is scheduled and is done is up to the chairman. I mean, the chairman could say, we start our budget process on Tuesday at 1 o'clock, and so he could say that at 6 o'clock and announce that, that's when we're going to vote on things. While the schedule says that we're going to meet at 8:30 or whatever, it doesn't say when we're going to vote on something. That's the problem I have with the argument that, you know in advance when the schedule is going to be. I can schedule around things, but I don't know whether the vote's going to be at 2 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 8 a.m., or whatever. This amendment says we definitely won't vote for it on any issue or any budget amendment or the budget itself until 6 p.m. That's what you have. You have more clarity, you have more definity by doing what I say, because under the way we have it now, the vote can go anytime. And you can't plan on something where it's so open like that.
Thank you, Supervisor Norton. Supervisor Spellman.
I think that we should allow county board members and...
It's on. Could you speak a little more directly into the mic? Oh, it says it's on up here.
Oh, okay, thank you.
There we go.
All right, thank you.
I had the wrong, that was my fault.
I think that it's important that the public and county board members can hear what is brought forward, can have time to process that before it is voted and time to speak on it. Outagamie County Board does what this resolution proposes. And I also think that when it comes to a matter of convenience between a couple hour difference, that we should be more consistent with when we are coming back to vote on these issues. And I think that we need to be fair to those who do work during the day and are not able to flex their schedule in order to make meetings which are not during normally scheduled times.
Thank you, Supervisor Spellman. Supervisor Lautenschlager.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The last two budgets, I was here to vote. I was here through the budget system to vote on because I'm retired. 3 years ago, I was working. Monday night, I couldn't make because it was night session. Tuesday, I had to call in sick, so I attended here. I took my chance. I was here, and I called in sick, and I did that. Wednesday, I couldn't call in sick 2 days in a row, so I went to work. Well, that was the day that they voted on the budget. So, Mr. Rasmussen, I was here for the budget. I just couldn't vote on it because I wasn't able to be here for it. I think it's very important that the board members are here for it. And I think 3 years ago, when I missed that, I think almost half the board was gone. I mean, there was very, I think that there was maybe 16 people that were even here that voted on it. Because there's some people that can't You know, well, maybe there's 20, but I'm just saying, at least a quarter of the board was gone because they were either working or they were, you know, just couldn't make it that day. So I agree that, I mean, it should be voted on when the majority of the board can make it.
Thank you, Supervisor Lautenschläger. Supervisor Wojciechowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree with what was said earlier by Supervisor Norton and Spellman. I think besides that, I think when people are wanting, supervisors are wanting to make changes to the budget and submit amendments, resolutions, what have you, we don't usually have a lot of time to be able to submit those and then have enough time to look them over and develop questions and have a good conversation with them. I think if we have a period in between starting at 6, the resolutions can be developed and we can have enough time, and the public can have enough time to look at them, and you know, maybe they'll come in when we have it at 6 as opposed to coming in early in the morning. I think it helps us in developing better resolutions and amendments to the budget and having a more meaningful discussion instead of, you know, maybe having more confusion because they're being presented so fast. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Wojciechowski. I'll call on Supervisor Keller first, and then it'll be Supervisor Lenz. Once again, his pad is not working. So Supervisor Keller first.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The last three supervisors said it well. I believe I agree with everything they said. One thing I want to add is that we are all here tonight. We are all here mostly every county board meeting at night. So obviously we have somehow arranged our schedules so we can make night meetings. The one most important thing that we do throughout the year is the budget. The budget sets the policy. It sets how we're going to serve our citizens. We should all be able to vote. We should all have time to look at the amendments that have been made and make a good vote for the people that we represent. So one of the most important things we do. And as far as scheduling ahead of time, I think if we pass this resolution, I think our chairman would be astute enough to have a couple of days for budget hearings and possibly schedule a night meeting for voting on those hearings. It doesn't have to be right after the hearings or right after the discussions. It could be the next week at night. So we would have the schedule ahead of time. It wouldn't be something that just is thrown on us in the last couple minutes. I thank you, and I hope you support this amendment.
Thank you, Supervisor Keller. Supervisor Lenz next, and then we'll go to Supervisor Eisen. Supervisor Lenz.
I guess, I don't know if, what the order is to ask for clarification, or intent on this one. Is the intent for this to be more convenient for the board members or for the public, or both? I would definitely vote in favor of it if it was leaning for the public so that they have a consistent time frame, and that it is more convenient for them with the, in respect to the business workday, the average business workday.
Thank you. I think it's probably fair to say that his intent was both. Thank you, Supervisor Lenz. Supervisor Eisen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As we know, unless there is a very hot topic like the racetrack or the ice rink, you're not going to have, or the roundabout, you're not going to have the gallery filled with citizens. The budget is not something, in the last 12 years of my service to Winnebago County as a supervisor, that the public has taken the time to weigh in. I weighed into the budget back in 2005 because I said there's something in the budget that's excessive, too much money in the property and liability account. And they took out $1 million and they avoided a sales tax. I happened to be an informed citizen. I got a copy of the budget because I knew I was going to run for the county board in 2006. If you look at the tentative dates, County Board Rule 17.0, 17.1, you can see the exact time that the budget is going to be discussed. And if you're an employee of Winnebago County And when you took that oath, you took an oath that you're going to be an employee. You're going to represent your people. You're going to speak up on issues that are relevant. I don't see any reason why someone couldn't take a vacation day. And I said that to a school teacher, superintendent, 4 years ago. And he said, oh, I'm not going to take off a day from school, teaching school, so I can go to the budget session. That's wrong. You signed up as an employee of Winnebago County with a responsibility of being a supervisor. And as it was so aptly stated, there's nothing that's more important than the budget. I oppose the resolution change to the rules.
Supervisor Spellman.
Thank you. And in response to Supervisor Eisen, I do agree that we are here to represent the people in our community. However, I don't think we should be making assumptions about what's going to be a hot topic for the budget. And we want the public to have a chance to voice their opinion, and we want that to be accessible to them. And we can do that by having consistent meeting times and giving the public a chance to review amendments to the budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Spellman. Supervisor Egan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think some of us are getting this confused. According to what this reads, either that or I am, this is just asking for votes to be taken between 6 and 11:59, am I correct? What about all the important stuff when the people, the heads of the departments are here talking to us and we're doing the discussion of the budget and all this and that? So people are going to miss out on that, but just come for the vote at the very end of it. That's what hopefully that some of the new ones or whatever aren't misunderstanding it, that they think the whole budget's going to be taken at this time. This is just the vote for at the very end is all that. Am I correct that this is all that's resolution? It's not going ahead, and I think that could be a mistake. Thank you.
Hey, can I answer?
Just for a point of clarification, though.
You know, for you returning members, 2 years ago when I tried to do this, I tried to make the whole thing at night. I did try to do that, and I got shot down.
But I just want to keep it to the clarification of answering his question.
I mean, and if someone wants an amendment to make the whole thing at night, I'd be all for that. But I know that wouldn't pass. But I'm just saying that the most important, that's my clarification. I don't think I should speak anymore about it.
Thank you. Supervisor Spellman.
That was a mistake.
Okay, thank you. Supervisor Egan, did you want to speak again? Okay. Supervisor Finch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Like I said, I oppose this resolution. In all my 26 years doing the budgets, I could almost count on 2 hands for the whole 26 years that the public was back there. 1 hand? Well, okay, that too. But all I'm saying is that I feel that it's been done this way, and it's done very well this way. We really don't get the public to take care of it. But the same token, we're here, the people are here, they're the ones that are looking at the resolutions, they're the ones that are really doing the budget, so on and so forth. So for us to stop, then come back at a different time, now, I could appease Supervisor Norton, but would I appease Supervisor Youngquist? 2 different times, 2 different dates. So are we going to pick and choose who we're going to help or who we're going to support? I don't think so. I think this resolution should be dropped. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, Supervisor Finch. Supervisor Spellman.
I think that we should not be looking at the past in terms of what has or hasn't happened. I think that we need to look beyond the status quo, and we should be challenging that and understanding if we are being efficient and effective in what we're doing and representing the people. And I believe that as we get more involved and if we are talking with our constituents and talking to them about issues and budget issues, that they will come and will speak about what's important to them when they have concerns or questions regarding the budget.
Oh, I apologize. You'll see that there are some errors in terms of the call-in. They're not necessarily accurate where some folks are actually not calling in, but nonetheless, our system makes it look like that. So you will see me bypassing certain names at different times. So Supervisor Wojciechowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wanted to echo what Supervisor Spellman said about looking back in the past. It's hard to say how many people would come in because those meetings were typically held in the afternoon or the morning when people are working. How will we know for sure how many people will come in if we move this meeting to a nighttime when people probably aren't working as much? I think it's worth trying to see how it works, maybe just a test run. I mean, we can always change it. If we change it to 6 and we see that no one comes in or it ends up having more problems than benefits, I think we can change that at a later time. But I think it's worth trying to see what happens. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Wojciechowski. Supervisor Wallen.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, didn't we just pass number 2 for the present members? So if someone's not here, their vote's not going to count anyways? So, well, maybe I'm not understanding it then, but, I mean, what my understanding is we're going to go off the people that are here, so if the other person isn't here, if there's missing members, then it doesn't even count as a vote, so why is that mattering, I guess?
So, just to clarify the resolution, what the resolution essentially says is that when amendments would be taken up on the budget, that would be at a predetermined time that had to be 6 p.m. or after on a specified date. We actually essentially do something similar in our budget sessions currently, where we always say the first day of the budget has to be at 6 p.m. on a specified date. So this is simply saying that for amendments, it would have to be at 6 p.m. or after on a specified date. Supervisor Warnicki.
I'm calling for the question.
Okay, there's a call to the question. Is there a second? Okay, that takes precedent. All those in favor of calling the question, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. So, we are on voting on the original resolution. Vote with your iPads. Aye if you approve, no if you don't. And that motion fails 17 to 19. So moving on to the final resolution before we vote on the rules as amended. So that is Resolution 6. Resolution 006-042018. Amend Section 4.5 of the Rules of the Winnebago County Board of Supervisors Budget Session. Supervisor Norton.
Well, I'll make the motion to approve, but
So there's a motion. Is there a second? Okay, there's a motion and a second. Discussion. This is essentially the same resolution, just so you are clear. The only difference is instead of voting on the amendments, 6 p.m. or after on a specified date, it would be voting on the full budget, 6 p.m. Or after on a specified date. So discussion. Supervisor Spellman? Nope. Is that accurate again? Supervisor Wingren?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, point of clarification, I guess. According to our rules, we cannot vote on something that's already been voted down. So, he said, didn't Mr. Norton say that he would withdraw this if, because the same thing, use some name, willy-dilly, something? Well, okay, whatever, never mind.
So just to clarify again, they are similar, but they are not the same. If this amendment were to be passed, what it would mean is that you would approve the budget itself at 6 p.m. or after on a specified date. The amendment still could occur at another time. So that's the only difference between them, but they are different because of that. So Supervisor Warnicki?
I again call for the question.
Okay. Call the question in a second. So that takes precedent. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. So we will move on to voting. I'm going to go ahead and do a voice vote on this one. All those? All right, we'll call for a roll. All right. So those in favor, vote aye. Opposed, vote nay. And this is Resolution 6. And that motion fails 17 to 19. So we are back up to the original resolution, which is to adopt the rules of the Winnebago County Board of Supervisors as amended. Supervisor Albrecht.
I move to adopt the rules of the Winnebago County Board of Supervisors as amended.
So there's a motion and a second. Any other discussion in regards to that? We'll do a voice vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Very good. So before we adjourn, just a couple things to remind folks. I want to remind that, remember, there's the committee selection sheet. So if you haven't turned it in, please complete that and turn that to the county clerk. Also, there's that contact information sheet. Please, if you can fill that out and turn that in to the county clerk as well. Otherwise, I'd entertain a motion. Oh, one other item, please, and you should have an oath form on your desk. If you could please sign that and turn that into the county clerk. And with that, I'd entertain a motion from Supervisor Roble to adjourn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll move that we adjourn until Tuesday, April 24th at 6 p.m.
All right, we are adjourned.